And Mr. Lopez, I sent Ms. Smith a spreadsheet with economic data that I asked her to send to everyone. So we may or may not get to it, but we have some.
Thank you, Dr. Wynn. Yes, I did see that this morning. So thanks for sending that over. Thank you, Mr. Hoda. Yeah, I did see that over. So board members, you should have that in your email inbox. Thank you, Leslie, for sending that. Also, just FYI, Mr. Goheen will be unavailable to join us today. He is stuck in court, so he sends his apologies. All right, it is 8:30, so I'm going to go ahead and call this meeting to order. Good morning and welcome everybody. Good to see you all and thank you for joining us. It is June 24th, 8:30 a.m. And I'd like to welcome you all to our special meeting this morning. So thank you for joining us. If we have others watching, thank you for being with us. To all my board colleagues and to our staff, good morning and good to see you all. So we'll go ahead and get started. I'll read our board norms and protocols as we do. The board, we agree to respect the differences of opinions in making decisions for the district, to follow best practices in managing the superintendent and the management of the board itself, to stay on task when conducting business for the district, including while at board meetings, to never surprise the superintendent or each other when conducting official business of the district, to read these norms at the beginning of each board meeting and at board workshops as a reminder of how to conduct our meetings, and to continually self-check to determine if we are following our norms when conducting district business. So with that, Ms. Smith, would you please do a roll call?
Yolanda Clark.
Yolanda Clark, present.
Maxine Drew.
Maxine Drew, present.
Janie Humphries.
Janie Humphries, present.
Randy Lopez.
Randy Lopez, present.
Wanda Brownlee Page.
Wanda Brownlee Page, present.
Dr. Wynn.
Dr. Wynn, present.
Present.
Thank you. Leslie, you cut out there at the end, just FYI. All right, so I would entertain a motion to approve today's special agenda, please.
So move.
Seconded.
Moved and seconded. Ms. Smith?
Yolanda Clark.
Yolanda Clark, yes.
Maxine Drew.
Maxine Drew, yes.
Janie Humphries.
Janie Humphries, yes.
Randy Lopez.
Randy Lopez, yes.
Wanda Brownlee Page.
Wanda Brownlee Page, yes. Yes.
Dr. Wynn.
Dr. Wynn, yes.
Yeager.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, before we jump in, thank you everybody, and thank you, Ms. Smith. Just want to remind folks, so we're here today to really do a deep dive into our budget process. It's one of our, as you all know, one of our main responsibilities for the board as well. We have a lot of information at our fingertips. You've been sent a lot of information over the last few weeks. So, you know, hopefully you've had a chance to dig through all the assessments, the building the department budgets. Mr. Covington has covered a lot in the budget presentations previously, and you have that information. Dr. Wynn did send an Excel spreadsheet for your review with some comparative data this morning. You may not have had time to dig through that, but you at least have that, and you can dig through that today, after today as well. So again, thank you all for your time, your patience. We do have a pretty good amount of time set today to talk through some things. I know Mr. Covington's going to kind of lead us through a conversation, and you know, there are a couple of recommendations from our leadership, And so we'll get through all of that. So hopefully we can knock a lot out today. We do have, we can schedule another meeting if necessary, but we'll see what we get through today. So thank you. So I'll go ahead and hand it off to Mr. Covington. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Good morning, board members. Before we get started, there was a meeting held in Topeka on Tuesday about a change in a state law that I need to make you all aware of. State law HB 2104. It has to do with something called a neutral tax rate. So I need to share my screen.
Give me 1 second, Dennis. I might have to give you permission here. Oh, you got it.
Yeah, I got it.
Okay.
So this was sort of walked through at the meeting. So unfortunately, I wasn't able to make the meeting, but my staff did. So I'm gonna try to walk through what this law says. Over in the left-hand column, you see our 2021 assessed evaluation at that 847. And you see our mill levies in column C, which I have highlighted here, which total our 49,6519 mill levy rate. And at that tax rate, we generated $40,485,847. In the third column D, which I've highlighted here, this is the part about the law. In order to maintain the total dollars of the 40,485,847, we would have to lower our mill levies. And the law states that if you intend to have a mill levy above these neutral rates, you have to let the UG know by July 20th. And so at our proposed mill levies for next year, no, we didn't change the general and capital outlay, but we did switch mill levies from bond and interest to supplemental, but it stayed the same or as the total. And at this new rate, because the county changed the assessed evaluations, which is just a preliminary number at the time, won't be final until November. Just because the valuations went up and our tax levies stay the same of the 49,6519, we're going to generate $1.8 million more in tax revenue for the county. And so we have to report to them that these are our proposed mill levies maximums. Now, I can say during our budget processing, until we get to the final budget, we have the authority to lower these if we want to, but we have to tell the county what our max is going to be by July 20th. Now, I can say that we know that we can't lower the 20 mills, because another law says we have to give 20 mills to the state. So we cannot change that number, even though it did generate more money, which means we have to report it to the county by July 20th, that our mill levy is above the 19,727. I can say that Randy said that they was trying to get schools eliminated from this, excused from this bill, because it doesn't make sense, because the 20 mills is a state law that you have to give to the state. So this means that every school district has to report something to their county, because your neutral tax rate is going to be below the 20 mil because they changed the access valuation. And so we have to, like I said, tell them our maximum by July 20th as to what our maximum mill levies is proposed at. And so I know we have a board meeting on July 20th. And so at that meeting, I will be asking you all to approve the maximum mill levies. And like I said, during the process, by the time we finalize the budget, we may lower one of the mill levies. That's board decision. But you can't lower the 20 mil for sure. And so I just want to bring that to you all's attention. And I tried to answer any questions. It was a long discussion up at that meeting. Randy was just like, just do it this year. They're gonna try to get it removed next year. But right now we have to submit this to our UG by July 20th at what our maximums mill levies would be, because they changed the assessed valuations, which generated more money above the neutral evaluation.
Can you make that bigger, Dennis?
Oh, I'm sorry. I am so sorry. That good?
That's much better. Thank you.
I'm sorry.
So basically because assessed valuations went up, our projected revenue is going up,
Yes, ma'am.
but that doesn't necessarily mean that our actual revenue will go up, because there could be a lot more uncollected taxes because of the economic circumstances people find themselves in, correct?
That's correct.
Do we have any projections from the county showing
No.
what they think our uncollected revenue would be?
No, ma'am. They just gave us that 85, 521, 342 number as the estimate assessed evaluation, and said that is not final. It's not close to final. They won't know the number until November.
So we don't need to take any action on this today. This is just our thinking about informational item.
Yes, I just wanted to share with you all that we will probably have to report those tax rates in column F by July 20th.
And you're saying that Dr. Watson is recommending that we just report what we have now, or is he recommending that we change them?
No, he didn't give a recommendation.
Addition.
He just said that we have to tell the UG what our maximum mill levy rates would be by category.
Okay, by July 20th, you said.
Yes. And so if we vote on it on July 20th, regular board meeting, my staff will send it over by midnight.
But, okay, so we have to report it by midnight on the day of our board meeting.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
And just to further highlight this, remember, there was no changes to the library. We didn't change any of their mill levies. So I'm still gonna have to report to the board, to the UG, that our mill levies are gonna generate more money than the neutral mill levies. So about $420,000 for the library. So all of this change is due to the assessed valuations that the UG done, and which is causing all school districts now to report these mill levies that's above the neutral mill levy.
Do we have any idea what other school districts are doing yet?
No, I do not.
So, Mr. Covington, could you repeat what you said, that if I understood you correctly, you will recommend keeping the, for lack of a better word, the higher rate, but what did you say that that the board may lower it later?
During the budget process, if we determine that, remember, we are going to have 9 mills for bond and interest, 90219. Suppose we decide during the finalizing of the budget that needs to be 89999. If we can do that, but if you have bond and interest at 90129 and you need it to go to 9.111, you can't do that because you didn't tell the UG. The number can't be above what you report to the UG. It can go down, but it can't go up.
So why would we, if we think we're going to lower it, why would we tell them the higher number?
I'm not saying we're going to lower it, because right now our proposed budget is based on those mill levy rates. But that was just what we proposed. You all have to finalize the budget, and we may not need all the mill levies as we proposed.
Exactly. So I'm saying if we then, so you're just telling them as a safety factor?
Yes, ma'am, exactly.
Okay,
As a safety factor. This is the maximum we're gonna have.
okay. Does that law also require us to tell the taxpayer?
It did not say that. I think that goes to the
That's
UG.
another law.
Yeah.
I can help address that if you don't mind. The UG is then responsible for letting the taxpayers know. They are not requiring them to do that this year, but they will next year. So it will be a big process for the UG to have to notify all the taxpayers. So I think there's going to be some more conversations about that before, during the next legislative session.
So as the school district, its own taxing entity, we don't have that responsibility?
Correct. The UG would be responsible for notifying taxpayers.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Covington at this time on this topic?
Dennis, can you email us that spreadsheet too?
Yes, ma'am. I will
Thank you.
send it at the end of the meeting.
Thank you very much.
All right. So, Mr. Lopez, I think now we can get into the specific line item requests for the board on the proposed budget, unless you all want to first have the discussion on the board's budget. So I can do either or. I mean, the board department budget, not the total budget.
Sure. Yeah, no. Why don't you go ahead and start? Since that's something we were planning to go through today anyways, and
Okay.
yeah.
So the first section that we can go over is the redirects and reductions. I outlined at the meeting what those entailed, and staff is on the Zoom if we have any questions that I possibly can't answer.
So we can start with a question?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, my concern was about the substitutes. You had lowered the amount, and for 2 years, we had vacancies up to 50. And it seems like there's been quite a few people to resign, and we have difficulty filling those positions. And part of the morale problem in the schools, from what I've seen, is that teachers have been having to cover quite a bit. So I don't think we should reduce the substitutes. I think we'll need even more. If we don't, and we can't face another year of not filling 50 or more positions, and we've lost more. So I don't understand the rationale to reduce that. I think we need it. Teachers are hurting. Principals are struggling. It's not fair to the kids to have, we need hired teachers, but if we don't, and I don't want us to, the goal is to fill those positions, but you still need the substitutes because you're wearing your teachers out. They got to teach the regular time and then fill that other time filling in for other people. It doesn't make sense.
In my understanding, the reason in our substitutes can put whatever, we can put $1 billion, but if we can't fill those seats for substitutes, no matter how much money we put in them, then the money will be left undone. Clarify, Dennis, didn't we have an amount left from our substitutes because we were not able to get substitutes? Yes. Have we thought about an alternative for the substitute situation? Because I know before there were other ways of getting substitutes, but if we don't have teachers available to come or who want to teach, then then that money is just carried over. Is that correct?
That is correct. Let me say a couple of things on that. The budget line is a proportion if we are fully staffed, and we're not. So to Ms. Page's concern, if we have all those vacancies, that generates lapsed salary dollars because we're not paying the teacher. Those dollars would be moved to the sub line if our sub budget gets exceeded. So we would have the money because the subs would be needed because we don't have the positions filled. And so for every day a teacher position is unfilled, that generates lap salary dollars. And those dollars will be used to help fund the subs. So the line item for the sub, if it gets exceeded, there will be other dollars that would go into that sub line. So the budget itself is just to show our trend for over the few years of what has happened. And we haven't, even with vacancies, we haven't exceeded that line. And a lot of it is due to what Dr. Yeager said, is we having a hard time finding subs. And so one of the things that I know that HR is exploring is just like how we do with our SPED subs. We hire some and we need to get a contract with a sub agency to help support that endeavor, but we have not explored that to the fullest yet.
So Mr. Lopez, how do you want us to proceed? If we decide as a board that we are going to, for example, we're going to say there must be fully staffed, 100%. Therefore, those dollars are not there to be put over in a substitute category. So are we making a list? Or is Ms. Smith making a list? Is Mr. Covington's staff making a list? How do we proceed? Because my constituents do not accept moving forward the same reality of 100 vacancies or 50 vacancies. So the expectation is going to be full staff. Therefore, the expectation is going to be perhaps more, permanent subs. We've had this discussion somewhat, permanent sub at every school. So we must budget for it. So how do you expect us to proceed, Mr. Lopez?
And also, I would interject, we have
Excuse me, I have a question for Mr. Lopez.
I know, and I would like to interject that the fact is, when we answer these questions, we have to be realistic in meaning that 100 fully staffed is, although constituents may think that's the reality, that's not reality. So when we look at, is it reality or is it feasible, then the problem comes with, if it's not realistic, are we going to be with superficial? Are we going to stay with superficial numbers, knowing that the fact is it won't be 100% staff? Even with permanent substitutes, there is a teacher shortage. Number shows it, statistics shows it, everything shows it. So are we going to just throw away because we don't personally believe it? Is that what's on the table today? Talking about unrealistic expectations?
Excuse me, Mr. Lopez, I asked you a question about how shall we proceed, whether it's this issue or another issue. That was the question to you.
So I think I would toss it back a little to Dennis to ask Dennis, as you've been preparing, or as you and superintendent and cabinet have prepared the budget. I mean, I think you're going in hoping and expecting to have to fill all our vacancies. But so I'm curious if you have any thoughts or feedback on Dr. Nguyen's question in terms of how we proceed, not just with, because
No, that wasn't the question, Mr. Lopez. The question is, if we have 4 votes to say, for example, we will reinstate targeted literacy, where is that listed? Where do we put that tally? That's the question, okay. Not of judgment calls, the structural question.
Sure. No, I think if there are items that the board decides, hey, for this example, targeted literacy, we wanted to reinstate or keep that. Dennis and his team and superintendent team should be keeping track of those. Yes.
Okay. Thank you. That was my question.
Yes, I'll be maintaining that list of what's not approved. But I will say that the budget is balanced right now. So if we take something off a list, we'll have to take something off the new list also.
Excuse me, what did you say, Mr. Covington?
If we take one of the reductions off the list, the budget would now be unbalanced. So we will have to remove something from the new request list, what I'm saying, to make it back balanced.
Well, I disagree with you that it, according, we don't do, let's say, put it like this. Right now, we're building it. And so if we come up with X amount, then, and I think we're saying the same thing, then we have to figure out how to fund X amount.
Yes,
But,
we're saying the
but
same.
by definition, if you put something in, you don't automatically have to take it out. That's not by law how we operate. Now, the
100%.
legislature does, but that's not us.
A
So,
little
thank you.
clarification too, Randy, is this, when do we approve or disapprove? So for instance, these are the proposed redirects, reductions. Would this need approval today? Or disapproval today?
My plan is that hopefully either through this meeting or another meeting, that on the July 20th board meeting, we will approve the budget.
Right. So what I was thinking, and I guess structurally to answer both your questions, what I was hoping is that we could go through all of these today, right? And give feedback to Mr. Covington and the team, and they will go back and make any adjustments as seen, as recommended or based on our conversation today, and come back with another presentation reflecting the feedback and dialogue that we have today, but not necessarily that we have to act on anything today. At least that was my understanding. I think there is one recommended piece that staff will ask for action today, but the rest of it is just to have conversation. Then the team will come back to us if we decide to have another special meeting prior to the 20th to give us that full presentation, so that on the 20th we are prepared to vote on the budget. So to answer your question, Dr. Yeager, I don't think there's an expectation to act on anything today except for one piece around staffing. Am I accurate, Mr. Covington? Does that
Yes,
sound okay?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. But I think if there are questions, absolutely, if there's questions, or if the board, if there's a will of the board to do something different, obviously that can happen.
Well, I would support, go back to the original proposal, if not fully 940,000, but some figure for additional substitutes, because we do not expect, and I don't think Mr. Covington or Ms. Tushman would say, we do not expect to continue to run 50 to 100 vacancies. We can't operate like that. We just can't.
And I would
do it.
ask that we would get a proposal or something about our substitutes in the combined process that we're thinking of sooner than later, so that we will be able to move forward with that process before the new school year.
I have already, let me just interject. I am working on getting someone who can support us, another agency who can support us with additional subs. They have told me, I've talked to 2 agencies already, there is a shortage of subs. They have also told me that we pay the best of any district. So it is not about money, because we are paying the highest, daily rate for subs. The fact is, there has been a lot of people exit teaching due to the pandemic and decided they were going to retire. They didn't want to mess with the technology, or they didn't want to be exposed in the schools. So that has reduced everybody's sub pools. We will be trying to get additional services to support us, but I've already done the numbers and know that our budget will support that. So when we say we can reduce this by 940,000, we do have information that supports that and backs that up. And remember that every position is fully funded in the budget. So just like Dennis said, if we do run into a situation where there are vacancies because we can't fill every position as much as we would want to do, then we will have those dollars available also to fill the sub positions. So we have the dollars already set aside. This is the numbers we have ran. This is our recommendation based on data that we have pulled for 3 years. And based on information we have received from the market. So this is our best informed decisions.
So Ms. Tushman, this is Yolanda. Who do we leverage, or do we leverage anyone for some type of like strategy thinking, innovation thinking? I hear, and I'm not asking for it this year, but I hear there's a shortage, and I hear all of those different things. But strategically, understanding the trend that we've had for the last few years, I'm also the one that says we don't necessarily have to fall within that, within the trend. So who are we leveraging to be strategic? Who are we leveraging to be forward thinking for our district?
Well, that's why I go out to, I've talked to 2 different agency groups to get their information. So we do a lot of research. We look at other districts and see what they're doing. We come up with our own innovations and try to, that's why we pay more than everybody else. So we are constantly looking at these things and how we can advertise differently. When we're doing the COVID shot program, where we're bringing people in to get their shots on site, we are also going to be doing some career fair at that time. And so we're trying to combine things as well. I mean, so we're always looking at innovation, but do we have an organization, an outside consulting firm that we work with? We haven't done that yet, but Dr. Stubblefield, may want to recommend that.
So we don't even have and I just don't know, we don't have a strategic department. So I hear and I think I'm hearing more department. And sometimes when you have hit to the ground, it's a little bit harder to think, a little bit different. So we don't have a strategic department or anything within our district that is actually thinking outside. Okay, and I didn't think so. I just wanted to be sure. I didn't want to assume. So you didn't answer my question. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Clarification, do we have staffing in the HR department to do that type of work? Do we have enough staffing in that area?
Well, no, I mean, obviously I'm asking for additional resources. So no, we don't. But, I don't want to also say that we don't do it. We do a lot of these analysis. We'll use data to help us understand. And we also reach out to all the other districts and other people in the business to try to understand. So we do have our contacts, but of course I welcome if the district wants to hire some consulting help to look at a lot of things in our district. We can certainly make that decision.
And one of the things I'd like to say is we have to recognize that our staff is trying to do the best they can, considering what we've been dealing with through this pandemic. They have put together these numbers in a way that will help us to be able to be beneficial. I appreciate Ms. Tushman for letting us know that she has done the research to find out that we are offering the best that we can to our staff, but we also have to put in professional trust to look at these numbers and to be in agreement with what they are proposing, because we ourselves, all of us, don't fully understand everything, but we're trusting and listening to the information. That's why we're coming together in this meeting, so that we can see, we can understand, we can do the best that we can. So I would, when we get ready, I would suggest that we leave the substitute figures the way it is.
Ms. Tushman, if we were to suggest, and we had that conversation on Tuesday, a 1 or 2 long-term subs in each school, does the budget support that? Because long-term subs come up with include fringe benefits.
We do put in long-term subs in school.
No, I'm sorry. The question is, if we were to recommend additional.
Additional?
Additional.
Well, yes, it would, because quite honestly, we're not fully staffed now. So when we look at the numbers, it's based on, what we expect the absentee rate to be or whatever. So we have room in our budget right now. We're not using, when we take out this 900-some thousand, we still have extra budget left to support putting more people in buildings. It's just a question of getting the resources.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you say getting resource or getting people?
Getting people, I say resources, I mean people a lot of
Okay,
times.
human
Yeah.
resources. All
Yeah.
right. So this is a call out to whomever's listening
Yes.
and us as individual recruiters when we
Mhm.
send people, because again, and this is another conversation that I know I'll circle back to as far as staffing. The applications are coming in. There seems to be, and this is not the appropriate time to have this conversation. So I will not go down this rabbit hole.
Yeah.
But at sometime today, Ms. Tishman, we have to have a conversation of the lag time of processing applications, because that is coming back to us as I had to take another job because HR didn't respond properly. So again, we're not playing gotcha games or surprises. And we've had this conversation before, but Mr. Lopez, before we leave today, we need to have that conversation. I would request.
My
So-
question is, has that information already been sent to Tishman for that analysis to see the length of the process before we dig into it, of back proof of the process based upon the length of time that it takes?
I'm going to redirect a little bit.
Yeah.
And say, let's not go, that's not that conversation. I understand, I hear everybody. But in terms of the budget, like that, let's come back to the budget, the line items. I understand where the questions are coming from, and we have had a little bit of that conversation, and potentially we can revisit. So I appreciate that coming up. I will jot that down. But are there other questions specific, whether it's the substitutes or other redirects? It looked like Ms. Humphreys had a question.
Ms. Tishman, I know a couple of years ago we had outsourced our substitute. Do we have any information about how effective that was when we contracted that out? Whether we had better coverage?
I just had a conversation with, I've talked to two different agencies now. One of them is the previous supplier of our subs. Yes, we did have a higher rate of coverage. I am talking to them, and I've been talking to others as well, about helping us fill in the gaps on our subs so that we get access to a bigger sub pool. And so that's kind of the direction I'm trying to head. But I can tell you very clearly, they told me they are also having trouble. Everybody's rebuilding their sub pools. And we have to understand that there have been a lot of people, I'm not making excuses. This is reality of just where we're at in education. And so I do recognize, I'm looking at all kinds of innovative ideas, and I'm open to whatever suggestions you have, but that's what we're working on right now. We're right in the middle of how do we supply our sub needs for next year. So, and we would rather have full-time employees, and then we wouldn't have to rely so heavily on subs also. And of course, that's what we're in the middle of right now as well.
So what I'm hearing, and I'm going to try to sum up, and so we can continue moving, right? But what I'm hearing is there's just a concern or a caution from the board to say, to make sure that we have enough resources, dollars put in place for the sub and for staffing. And so I think the caution was, by removing the $940,000 from substitute, does that still allow enough resources for the HR team and the district to hire the subs that are going to be necessary? So I think that was the caution of the question. Is and it sounds like there's you guys have done your due diligence and feel you can continue moving forward to cover and fill the vacancies, to fill the subs, and you're going through some processes. So even if we remove that 940, you feel confident that you can go forward. I think the caution from the board is make sure that that's the case. Don't shortchange the staffing side of it, the substitute side, because we saw, every district saw how that them this year. So I think the board members, from what I'm hearing, are just want to make sure that you have the dollars available to do that. So it might be good just to, I know we're not finalizing anything today, but maybe go back and just kind of revisit that number and make sure that that's the number you want to go with, or other options like Dr. Wayne asked about additional long-term subs. What does that look like? How does that impact your budget? But I think we just want to make sure you have the dollars
Yes.
available to cover the subs.
I appreciate it. I do appreciate that, that concern. Thank you.
Other questions from board members on this? I didn't want to cut anyone off. I was just trying
No.
to summarize.
Mr. Lopez,
Yes, ma'am.
district-wide equipment. We heard during our tours that still schools didn't have equipment, and connectivity is still an issue. Where are we on district-wide equipment?
Dr. Wayne, are we talking about computers?
First, what is this line item talk about? Does it talk about computer? Does it talk
No,
about
that's not the line for
scanner,
computers.
the scanner in the biology room?
It would cover that. But I can say that I've reached out through the IOs. No one has notified me of any equipment needs that they don't have.
Okay.
But this line does not cover computers. That's in our capital budget on the technology for our computer replacement. So I would just like to say, if there's a principal that is in need of equipment, they just need to notify me so that we can get it handled.
Mr. Covington,
Yes,
on
ma'am.
the equipment issue, I went to Harmon, and in the special needs room, they needed lifts. I brought this up before, and they still are using antiquated equipment. Manually, these women are picking our kids up, trying to help them, and they need the more up-to-date lifts. I don't know if you got that, but we brought this up before, and that is still some equipment that they need. If they need it at Harmon, I'm quite sure they need it at the other schools where they have to lift and move young people.
Right, and Ms. Page, that also will not come out of this budget. That will come out of this budget line. That will come out of the SPED budget line. And I did pass that on to our SPED department, and I can get you an update on those equipment items, because I was not in the process of, did they notify the SPED director and what her process is on supplying those equipment needs. But
Okay,
I can't.
well, I didn't mean any harm, but it just said district-wide equipment. Now, we
Right.
didn't get a lot of explanation on that. So I just assumed it fell under that category.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, but the SPED equipment is covered with SPED budget, not out of that budget line.
Just a generic question, Mr. Covington. So if you are reducing district-wide equipment by 565,000, then there are no requests for additional equipment in the, excuse me, are there requests for additional equipment in the department budgets?
No, ma'am. That line just covers things that people request throughout the year. And like I said, no one has given me a list. The last comprehensive list that I had came out of the custodians. And we went out and we purchased a bunch of equipment they needed to keep our schools clean. But I don't have a comprehensive list from any principal about equipment needs.
And in the department budgets as well, these millions of dollars do not include equipment?
Some departments have an equipment line in their individual school. And I mean, in their individual department budget.
Right.
But this is the one where we, like, if we need to replace lunchroom tables, student desk, teacher's desk, file cabinets, district-wide.
When do we, well, why do we have so many telephone purchases?
The phone policy, I think it goes down to the assistant director level and above get district phones.
And
And
I mean,
so,
when we look at the monthly payouts, there's what are, oh, okay, I'll ask that later. Thank you.
Mr. Covington,
yes, ma'am.
we're in need of I don't know if this would come out of this budget, the room that has all the historical documents and things from the district, would that go toward, couldn't some of that go toward fixing that room
Yes, ma'am.
to buy the supplies and things that we need?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay,
That's what that line will be used for. Like, we put all those shelves in that room. It came out of that district line.
okay, but we need tubs and things because it's in cardboard boxes. And there's a need to work on that particular room to make it where it's equipped so the historical documents won't be damaged. So could some of that be used to fix that and
Yes,
to
ma'am.
bring in a company to make sure we're doing it right?
Well, you wouldn't charge the consultant to the equipment line, but we can buy all the stuff that the consultant said that we need to preserve that stuff. Yes.
So has that been budgeted in?
Not as a particular line item, no. But
Okay, well,
I'm sure
can we
we
do
will have
that?
enough
'Cause
money.
There's
that.
a need to do that. And someone has said I don't think it should come out of the board budget.
No, it shouldn't. It should come out of that line. The remaining funds on that line should cover what we need to get that.
Okay. Well, can we add something in to do that?
Well,
Because,
this is the first I'm hearing of it. Are we?
Right.
okay, no,
have to vote
no,
on
I
no.
don't think we
We
need.
brought that up. I'm just
Let me
asking
interrupt
that
before we
come
go
out
a
of
little
that.
bit further.
Can we,
Now
can
that we know that
continue
we can
on
do
with our
it, later
slides?
on, we can put a plan into place. So
We're
let's
trying to
just
get
move
the
on.
people and materials. I'm just saying.
I don't think we, Ms. Page, I don't think we need to add any money to do that. I think the budget line itself, because there is not a particular, every year we have to buy this, and this for equipment. So I think when we get, as we get requests for those dollars, we can make that a high priority to go ahead and get that funded.
Okay, well, I just want to make sure we're talking about budget. It
Yes.
has to be done. I'm not off task because this is budget. It has to be done. Where is that money going to come from?
But when we're talking
Yeah.
about people, staff buying totes, we're all the way digging in the weeds. We're telling what kind of totes to buy,
No.
how many people should be staffed,
That's what you said.
Okay.
there's
That's
how
what
many
you
custodians
said.
should be.
No, you taking it
right.
totally out of context.
Yeah,
That's what you said.
time out. I'm gonna just, everybody take a moment. All right. I understand where the question is coming from. That is an item that I think we just want to make sure that we have, that's a conversation that has come up. And I think the question is, we just want to make sure that there's money in the budget still, if that's a need that the board is going to see, that is there. And it sounds like Mr. Covington saying that there is full money to be able to do that. We just have to prioritize that. I don't want us to dig too far deep, but it is a question that has come up previously. So I will remind everyone to please respect and not talk over each other. It's a little harder on Zoom, so that we can hear everybody. So let's just try to not talk over each other, please. Okay, thank you. Any other questions?
Thank you, Mr. Covington. I just want to make sure we get it done. And
Yes,
I
ma'am.
appreciate that. I wasn't going there, but thank you so much for answering the question.
I will get with Leslie and we'll put a plan together to get that stuff organized better and stored better.
Okay, thank
A lot
you.
of it, we probably gonna have to send out to get put on some kind of automated tool.
Okay.
All right. Any other questions on this slide here around redirects or reductions?
I just have a question. When you presented this, Mr. Covington, did you say Emerson Extended is still going on or it is not going on?
It's still going on, ma'am. That line used to be $200,000, but the number of kids that goes to that program, the remaining budget of $60,000 is what we've been spending the last couple of years.
And help me understand again what Emerson Extended is?
It's the oh my gosh, the preschool and after school program that we do. I'm sorry, I am drawing a blank on the name of the program, but Emerson didn't have enough revenue to sustain their program. So we cover the program for Emerson.
Is it Kids Zone?
That's it, Kids Zone.
Here to help you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we cover all kid zones?
No, all the other Kids Zones generate enough revenue to sustain their program, but not the Emerson.
Okay.
All righty, thank you, Mr. Covington. I think you can move to the next slide.
The next section on the budget is the investment in our staff, salary increases, and the market adjustments. And we are here to answer questions on this section.
So I think I asked you for specifics. Did we receive that on your paras and your directors?
No, no, ma'am. I got that last night, and I
Yes,
have
you
not
did.
had a chance to pull that data together.
But I've asked you that. If I've sent the email prior to last night, but I'll accept the fact you haven't had a chance to do that. I'll move on and come back to those two items. I'm a little concerned about, I don't support the 5% bilingual, biliterate salary increase, perhaps maybe 2%. There's not much, in my opinion, clarification of, is this, I think it was presented as only principals.
Right.
Do
Principals and APs to begin with. We want to expand it, but we don't have enough money to expand it right now.
Right. So potentially someone could get a real substantial increase. I mean, upwards of 8%, correct?
Oh, if you include the salary increase?
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. That's true.
And so that I don't believe, I'm not prepared to support that. Help me understand, you don't have it broken out, but what do paras and aides and support make, and how would this increase? Do you have that information, or you don't?
Yeah, Dr. Nguyen, that information we can forward. But we do have, I think, Dennis, I gave you some information.
Hold on a second.
We would be, for example, the paras, aides, and support. This would represent, that number right there represents about a 60 cent to $1 improvement in pay. So
The write-up showed that the paras will move their starting pay to $15.
Yep.
The aide starting pay will go to $14.03.
Yep.
AEC1,
that's class one.
AEC2 will go to $15.61 as starting pay. And all that's in that write-up I sent to you all called the case for investment.
Yeah, I mean, we have data so scattered, so that's why I asked.
Yeah.
So, okay, for that. And but you don't have for the directors and assistant directors, right?
No, ma'am.
Okay, so I'm not prepared to, and we're just going through this explanation. We've had this before. So what's the percentages? Do you know that?
Let me just say this. The market adjustment for directors and principals, we are about, you've heard me say it before, about $15,000 to $20,000 short of what they could get paid otherwise. So this 970,000 represents about a $7,000 increase. I just basically split it for the next 2 years so that we can be competitive overall. So this is like about a $7,000 to $8,000 improvement. They would not be getting the 3% increase on top of that.
What percentage is 7,000?
Well, on average, let's just do 80.
Okay, you'll give us more data, because that's, Mr. Lopez, that's the context for the comparative data that we've just seen. So I'd like to reserve right to circle back to this conversation when we have Ms. Tushman's specific data, and we've had a chance to look at the comparative data.
Okay,
But again,
I want to
the
remind
bi-
everybody. Oh, I'm sorry, Dr. Wayne, go ahead.
Well, I'm just saying, and then combined with the bilingual 5%, you're stacking percentage increases that, you know, we already have low morale, and I think you're setting people up for conversations that maybe, you know, and what does it mean bilingual? Do you have a degree in that language? Is that your native language? It's for me, it's not clear enough to, excuse me, and why only principals and vice principals? You know, you open the door for, what about the translators? What about teachers? So I would like for us maybe to continue to look at this, study this, but still we'll have more conversation on this. Thank you, Ms. Tushman.
Okay, I was just going to clarify for you guys. Remember, I have given you comparisons to look at in the market analysis that we did, and we went over, I think, 2 different times. So you do have data that shows you basically how I came to these market adjustments for directors, principals, assistant directors, and APs. And I would also say on the biliterate, it is a very small group of people. So you wouldn't have that many folks that would really qualify for this because they have to be bilingual and biliterate. In addition, translators, the fact that they are bilingual or multilingual is already reflected in the translator pay. So it gets reflected in what we pay for translators, because that is the job, basically. Yeah. So that, you know, that would take that out of the equation, and you really would be just dealing with those people that are in our buildings who come into contact or are there and can engage with our families. That is something of value to the district, anyway, from our perspective.
Yeah. No, Ms. Tishman, what I'm speaking of, like per capita income in Wyandotte County, per capita income in Johnson County, not what the director of X is making in Johnson County and the director X is making in Wyandotte County. That's the data you provided us. That I can have Ms. Smith send you the census data that I would like for us to discuss. Not only do people, you know, we're responsible for the taxpayer. So first, the taxpayer has to have the ability to pay. Now, if we don't have the revenue to pay, that's one thing. But again, it broadens the discussion of when we talk about competitiveness. It's also cost of living of the taxpayer in Wyandotte County compared to the tax base in Johnson County. So that's, again, the conversation for another day. Thank you, Mr. Lopez.
I'm gonna forward a presentation that was put together by Rachel.
Yeah,
right, Rachel.
Right.
So,
yeah.
She just put together a new presentation. So, board, you haven't seen it yet. I will forward that to you. Ms. Tishman sent it to me this morning as well. Rachel worked on it last night.
Great.
Last night. So I will send that to you all so you have it and can dig into it. And I think it'll cover some of the things you're mentioning, Dr. Wynn. So we haven't had, this is a different presentation than what we've seen
Right.
before.
So we have a lot of data to digest. Thank you.
I would say that I'm in full support of the market adjustment. That's what we've been asking for. That's the data we've been asking to present. Also, the reality is, yes, there is a difference between Johnson County and Wyandotte County, but the reality is we are losing staff. We just had a conversation to talk about we're losing staff. So we can't keep undercutting the staff that are coming in knowing that we're not competitive. So I think I would be in full support because it's very important that we stay competitive. The reality is, if we, just like bilingual, we are 60% Spanish speaking Hispanic, and we wouldn't support bilingual. So I think it's really important that we continue to look at ways we can increase how we can actively increase the bilingual staff. We know last year, and we keep getting feedback, that there's a shortage in translators. There's a shortage in teachers being able to translate. So I think that this is important for us to be supportive of, as well as the market adjustments. We've had presentation after presentation, as well as the reality that we have to really truly look at the data. when we look at the data and we see that less people are coming into education, that we're losing staff for our Kansas City, Kansas District 500 in Kansas City, Kansas, to other ones here in Kansas City, Kansas, that has a lot to say. And, you know, they're like we say, you know, we are responsible for our constituents, and many of our constituents are choosing to teach outside of our district because once they get to a higher level, they can get paid more.
And that's a very good point, Dr. Yeager, because it circles back to, again, we will have a fuller conversation later, but it circles back to also that there are constituents who have to move outside to get the opportunity. So, you know, it's bigger. Perhaps you misunderstood what I said, but I'm saying without knowing percentages, without knowing the exact amount, then in my opinion, one doesn't just approve a lump sum that excuse me, that I said, you know, competitiveness is competitiveness, yes. And for hopefully, as we discuss other salaries, we will make the entire realm, all of our staff competitive. So I look forward to having a fuller conversation, Mr. Lopez, when now we have even more data to look at. So great,
no,
thank
I
you.
clearly understood the question, and I clearly understand what you're saying. Your concern is that we're paying, you know, this comment has been made over and over. If they're making over $100,000, they don't deserve more. They don't deserve to get an increase. They don't, right. So I clearly understand what you're saying.
So
No, I don't think I've ever said deserve. So you must be quoting someone else.
I have a question, Mr. Covington or Ms. Tishman, regarding the bilingual bilateral salary. I'm guessing you all have a strategy in terms of how you would measure, like who would be able to qualify for that. But I am curious, what would it look like to expand that to other staff and not just at the principal or director level? You know, to especially, I know principals have a lot of interaction with parents, but so do the teachers or other frontline staff. And I get that's different than translators and interpreters who are already employed. But I'm just curious what that looks like. What does that number look like if we were to want to expand that out to other staff in the district? Have we looked at that?
Randy, we would probably need the category that you want us to cost out. Do you want us to look at secretaries, teachers?
That was my
Office
question.
staff? I mean, what category do you all want us to cost out to expand it?
Well, that was my point of at 5% with just 2 groups of workers, 2.5, you probably could maybe spend the same amount or similarly, but we don't know. But that's what, you know, whoever can help. I mean, it could be the nutrition worker who is in that cafeteria helping out that student who doesn't speak English all the time, or a social worker who is having some problems. I mean, that's why I said we maybe need to think this through. No one is saying that we don't need communication. Our kids need it more than anybody else.
And that was my question too, because while it's great to have principals and APs be bilingual, they don't have as much interaction with our students and our parents as our teaching staff and our cafeteria workers with some of our students as other people do. Very few parents, especially in the larger schools, actually have as much interaction with the principal as they do with the teachers. So that's something that I think we do need to have more conversations about, and think about and discuss. And as we've brought up before, it's not just Spanish that we need the bilingualism in. And how do you determine if someone is biliterate? Because by being able to speak another language does not necessarily mean that you're biliterate.
Yeah, and we would have some testing, Janie, that we could do around that. I mean, that's part of what we do in the district anyway. So we've talked about that. I'm happy to cost out some different options to consider, but it would mean we'd have to take money from someplace else on our list here. So,
Well, I mean, it's not something that we're going to be able to determine overnight either. It's going to take some planning and involvement with the ESL department and
yeah,
a lot of research to figure out how best to address the needs of our community because we're very unique.
yeah.
Yeah, so it sounds like there's some consensus around just getting a little bit more information on maybe costing out. If we wanted to expand that a little bit more, or district wide, I don't know. But it sounds like there's consensus around just wanting some more information, some more
Okay.
data around what that would look like if we broadened who would qualify for that. So and I know we're asking for more data, more information, and I understand that takes time on your end and staff end, but I think for this piece, if we wanted to move forward, I think it would be helpful to have that. And it sounds like there's consensus for more information on that.
Okay.
However, I don't think we answered Dennis's question, which areas? He asked specifically which areas. Would that include every single person and position? Would it include, but what are we telling them? What is the direction?
You want us to make some suggestions?
Yeah, I think some suggestions would be helpful. I mean, I think, I don't know how realistic it would be to pull some information district-wide if we wanted to open that up for, but.
Well, it kind of gets down to what roles, that.
That's the question I was asking. What
Yeah.
role is it beneficial?
Yeah.
For someone to be biliterate in the district?
Yeah.
Cafeteria person, I think, is excellent role.
Right.
So they have a conversation with our kids every day. Bus
So can we,
drivers.
can we
Bus
defer?
drivers, yes.
Secretaries.
So I'll say this, Mr. Covington, Ms. Tishman, why don't you all put your heads together and kind of think through what that looks like? Board members, if you have specific roles that you think would be helpful, send those to Ms. Page and I, and then we can get with staff to see if those would be included, just for the purposes of time right now. But yeah, Ms. Tishman, Mr. Covington, put your heads together with Dr. Miguel and other cabinet.
And I would think school principals would have a very good idea of who in their buildings would be very helpful to have bilingual staff.
Yeah, and I think when we get down to the classified staff, you probably just need them to be bilingual.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. Because they're not necessarily a role to necessarily need to be biliterate.
Right.
Right.
So it may be easier to look at a stipend and not a percentage.
Mm-hmm. Right. That's a good idea.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, Mr. Covington, what 5 days? You're saying holiday pay, 5 days for all 261 staff. What 5 did you choose, and why did you choose just 5? Because we're competitive, very competitive with all the other job places that are paying 15 or more and giving more holidays. Have we thought about that? Because we're going to lose a lot of people like that.
Well, remember,
5, and I'm asking what 5 days have we ever thought about extending to making it more than 5?
Well, when we first looked at this, we looked at 10 days.
Okay.
Because this whole conversation started, to be honest, with our bus drivers and our cafeteria workers. Those days when we closed during Christmas has always been a problem with our staff. And so we was looking at how can we pay them during that time period. So we looked at 10 days. And then based on the budget, it got reduced down to 5 days. And it was not where we picked the 5 days. We would just give them 5 days of holiday pay.
Okay. They're already off, remember. They're not working on those holidays already.
And they're not getting paid. So that's
They're not getting paid,
So-
right? So just
So we
rolls
gonna
in.
pay them 5 days.
But then here's my concern. Okay, you're giving them 5. And remember, there's a demand for workers. everybody's trying to get people. And you got to offer more than just 5 days to be competitive.
Well, we offered, the other competitors are offering, we know for a fact that other bus drivers are getting 4.
Well, I'm
So
not talking about just bus drivers, because they're leaving bus driving, they're leaving nutritional. Some of them are going to McDonald's. They're getting more days off and getting paid than what we're offering. So that's all I'm saying. We're not just, I know you're looking at other bus drivers. I respect that. I get that. But I'm looking at, maybe I could just change my whole profession, because you're still having to pay for this. Because if you don't get enough people, then you're going to labor max, you're paying them. So why not give the people something to keep them, and we can hold on to them? That's all I'm saying. Because in the end, we're paying for it.
Well, that's really all across the board here. Every market adjustment I've got on this piece of paper is because we are trying to be competitive and retain people, which is why this is so important. You know, I'm trying to balance it all out.
I hear what you're saying. All I'm saying is,
yeah, if we could put more there.
Driving, you're looking at nutrition, other districts. I get that. But all I'm saying to you, some people are saying, hey, I can go to McDonald's. I don't even have to deal with this. And I eat more and get paid every day. So I'm just saying, you know, we got to look at that too. Because in the end, if you don't get enough people, you're going to labor max, you're having to pay them. In what you were paying them, we could have been paying these people to keep them.
Well, and also a good reminder here is that's why the 3% increase is important, and doing those every year, because that's how we get behind, is when we do not keep up with our pay increases. So one way for us to kind of beat this process is to stay up with our pay increases for all classified staff, and then make these adjustments like you guys have been asking us to do, to bring up the pay closer to $15 an hour, which is what we're on the mission to do. And then we've looked at this additional holiday pay as well, right? So we're trying to be responsive to how to retain and attract talent to the district.
No, I get that, but your only downside is I'm only getting that money if school is open. School's not open, I don't get paid. So I still got a problem. I appreciate that, but school is not open, so I'm not getting paid. So what do we tell that person? I'm just saying, can we try to do something a little bit more to help them?
Ms. Page, I can just say, if it's the board's will, the number can go up. We can go back to 10 days, but in the end, we have to balance the budget out. That's all I'm saying. If the board say, nope, we want that to go to 10, we'll try to find the money to support it.
Well, I personally would like to see it go to 7 to 8. I realize we got to balance, but to me, 7 or 8, at least it gives them a little bit more. Because when you're not on, that's a hard job. I only get paid when I go to work.
Ms. Page, let me ask you this. If you're talking about 7 to 8, would that cover, or Ms. Tushman or whomever can answer the question, like the Christmas vacation, the Thanksgiving vacation, the school is closed?
It would cover part of those days, right? So, 5 still leave some days unpaid. And so I do appreciate what you're saying. I mean, I would love to increase it. We just have to figure out where would we, where are the funds going to come from for that? Because if you just do the math, it's about $118,000 per day additional.
Okay. So, and with respect, you would love to increase it. With respect, that is the board's decision. So,
I agree with you.
Yeah, I understand that. So I'm saying if it goes up to 8, how many days are, I don't know Thanksgiving and Christmas. How many days is the school closed? I mean, do they work on Wednesday?
You have Thanksgiving, Christmas, and spring break.
Yeah, so it's about, I'm trying to think here, 5 plus another 10.
So Christmas is 5 days, right?
Right. So I think it's around 20 some days.
20 days?
Somewhere around
5.
5, but you get 10.
Thanksgiving is probably 2, Thursday and Friday. So that's 12.
Oh, sorry. Yeah,
Where did you get your other 8?
I was thinking, schools are, schools are closed for 2 weeks at Christmas.
Yeah.
Right, so maybe, so if you're talking 12 days, Ms. Page, is a compromise 7 or 8? I mean, that's what you have to kind of sell to the rest of the board.
Well, don't forget Martin Luther King Day and the Wednesday before Thanksgiving.
Yeah, there's,
And other
No,
holidays.
we already counted that. So Martin Luther King Day would be 13.
Well, then there's the Wednesday before Thanksgiving.
We counted that.
And you only counted 2 days for Thanksgiving.
Okay, so that's 14.
And
So we
then
just-
there's the days that we have we don't have school, like teacher
Well,
conference
yeah.
days and other holidays. There's a lot of days that transportation doesn't run and food service doesn't work.
Okay, so if you're up to, let's go up to 20. If you're up to 20, Ms. Page is suggesting a compromise of not 5, but maybe 8. That's, and you still don't have, you still got 6, 8 off. So,
Mhm.
so that's what you're asking, Ms. Page, correct?
Yes.
okay, yeah.
I don't know if I would be in favor of pulling money out. I believe the 5-day increase was more than they had, so I think we should keep going through the rest of the budget. I personally wouldn't be in favor in changing what the recommendation is.
I agree with you.
But what kills me is we say we're concerned about our employees.
We are concerned about employees.
Okay, I just
but
simply
because
say,
we
let me
disagree-
finish. I'll let you say yours. Let me finish, because I know you're gonna comment. But again, we're gonna pay for it in the end, because if they don't come to work, they quit, we go to labor max. That's money we're spending. Why can't we give that to our people who work here and who pay the tax? We're the 3rd largest employer in the city.
Well, and I would just want to say, I wouldn't say that we wouldn't still depend on labor max, because we will still always have a shortage of labor in some jobs. So,
But we spend a lot with labor max because
I mean-
people are quitting. I get that. I understand that. I'm just saying it wouldn't kill us to give 3 or 2 more days.
My reality
Right.
is,
I won't belabor the point. I just expressed how I felt. I think we should do that.
my only comment is just because we're increasing the days off does not equate to retaining staff. What truly will retain our staff? If we even did 20 days, would that truly retain staff? Have we done an analysis to prove that, if we offer 10 days, that'll make a change?
A
We
lot
don't-
of them say some of the reasons they're leaving is because they don't have enough days paid holidays. It's easy to say that when you're getting paid. When you're getting paid every day that you show up for work and there's school, that's a big difference. But then you talk to a person who's only getting paid when there is school, that's a different conversation.
Then I think that maybe we could consider changing a policy. For instance, if there's a snow day, go ahead and pay staff anyway.
we do that.
We do that.
Right,
We do.
so we're doing that. So what can we do that are currently practicing? But I still don't see the value of increasing paid holidays, because I don't think that will equate to retaining staff, because they're still going to be missing a 10-day. So if they're going to leave, they're going to find another way if there's other companies. So I just still do not see the equation for it.
I respect your opinion, but from the people I talk to, that's their biggest complaint. If we could just get a few more days pay, because when it's closed, they're closed. They're hurting. They're trying to survive. They're trying to support their families.
Which we
This is
have
a bigger
increased.
conversation, and I think the bigger conversation even came from our previous superintendent. He mentioned we don't have the data and we don't have the voice of our employees. So we spend a lot of time going off of looks like, feels like, conversation. Like, we don't do stay interviews, we don't do exit interviews. The exit interviews that I've asked about that several times. And there are a lot of companies that are able to be successful with that. So we don't really get the true voice of our employees and our former employees. We get a lot of conversations, and that's my opinion. And so I really think stay interviews are huge, huge. My company does stay interviews. And so why am I staying here? What keeps me here? What makes me leave? Those are the things that we need to get. That's the data we need to have in front of us versus conversations.
But the only problem, Ms. Clark, is people who transfer and leave, they're afraid of retribution. So they don't always fill them out, and they don't always tell the truth. And that's a fact.
But in our current state and maybe our current process, that might be true. So, but right now, zero data, and compare, if you give me 10% versus zero, then I can at least go off of that 10%. And you can find some common trends. I mean, I dig through those things all the time. So I hear what you're saying, but trust me when I say other companies have that same fear. People have that same fear when they leave, but they are successful with it in some regards.
That's not always the case here. That's all I'm saying. I respect that.
Stay interviews are a little different. It's when you take the current analysis on people who decide to stay, not leaving. So that means sending out a current survey asking what reasons are you staying with the district? What reasons do you stay? So that's a little different than exit interviews. Yes. Exit interviews when they already leave. So what I hear Yolanda saying is consider doing a stay interview or interviewing our current employees to see what their current needs are so that we may, as a board, be able to make a full decision rather than having no data.
I mean, that's how I feel. Stay interviews and exit interviews, they are absolutely different. And yes, why do I stay here? Why do I leave? And you can find some common trends if you dig into that stuff.
You can do a cultural survey too, would be another way, almost like a stay interview as well. But yeah.
Well, I think
Well,
that's the recommendation.
Ms. Tushman, you said whatever we decide, it's 118,000 per paid vacation for those that are everybody, or
right. That would be for those. It's about 950 employees is what we've calculated that would be in that situation of needing those days paid. So it's going to be those folks that are not 261 that are hourly employees. And
your estimate is 118,000 per day.
Yeah, that's
okay.
what
we've got the cost.
Yeah.
So what Mr. Lopez, whenever we circle back to this, we have a cost.
Yeah,
an estimate. That's what we have, an estimate.
Ms. Tushman, how many paid vacation days do 261 day employees get?
Well, it depends on the years of service, but they start with 10.
Okay, so if you work year round, you get 10 days vacation, paid vacation. And so bus drivers and nutrition workers, how many days do they work?
186.
186.
Unless they're getting extended in the summer, of course.
So if you did a percentage, how would that work out with paid vacation days?
Well, take your 10 days divided by 261, be about 0.38 times 186, 7. So that'd be 7 days.
Okay.
Yeah, that's not a bad frame of reference, Jeannie.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So could we just add to our list the stay analysis? Put that on our pen.
I took the note.
Good discussion, everybody. Thank you. Any other questions as we continue to move forward, right? Questions on the current slide?
Explain again the longevity increase. Is that for every employee?
Yes,
it is.
Including the 186 employees?
Yep. If they've been here, they do. It's a percentage of their pay.
Okay.
Yeah.
And this 150,000 is what?
Incremental. Right, Dennis?
Yes.
Thank you. Meaning it goes up. What's the range?
Well, the range change is 1% from 10 to 14.
Oh, that.
15 to 19. 2 from 20 to 25, with 20 and above.
So the increase is what?
Well, as the people move up the scale, your costs will go up. Like if I went from 14 years to 15 years, my amount that I'm getting gonna go up by 0.5%.
And
So
if,
this is not an increase. This is just the numerical.
Yes, to
Number of
maintain what we
people.
already approved.
Okay, I understand.
Yes,
That many more people will move additional, expected to move additional year. So their annual date.
Right.
Got it.
are we ready to move on, Mr. Lopez?
It sounds like it. Thank you, sir.
Now, this slide is the one that we're gonna be asking for approval because we need to get into the hiring process to get these positions filled.
I make a motion that we approve the building assessment needs recommendation as
Okay.
shown on the slide.
I second it.
For clarification, Dennis, would you clarify, is it every one of these lines that's on here, or is it just certain ones that are being recommended? Didn't we do the APs already?
We've already approved the AP, the
Okay.
AP, the 5 APs. You've done that one already.
And did you tell us what those salaries were?
For
Mr.
the AP
Covington,
for the APs, ma'am?
correct.
No, that was in that,
Did you, no,
Request.
you had them a lump sum. Did you identify what the middle, I mean, I don't think the middle APs, do they get the same salary? Or is it based on population?
is.
Based on-
Go ahead, Kelly.
I was just gonna say, it is based on whether they're elementary, middle, or high. Okay,
Correct.
so
Did you-
is there a range? What's the range is what you're asking?
No, did you cost them out? Did you just tell us
Oh.
that the principal, vice principal at XYZ school would get XYZ amount?
We used an estimate, an average, and that's because we haven't hired them yet, so we won't know exactly where they are on the pay table. Because we don't know, we've got to hire these positions. So it depends on, remember, they get years of service for, their past.
So you're
experience.
expecting internal candidates only?
Well, and no, not necessarily, but that is, we're just you're getting an average value that we pay assistant principals, and that's what we used. And then the actual will probably be, maybe slightly different, but well,
See, that's the problem. I understand what you're saying. So it's a little challenge to, you keep asking us to approve positions and we don't know what the salaries of those positions are.
But
But
we already approved the salary table for them to hire. So that means that if one has more experience or less experience, if we change on that until we hire them in, we won't have an exact amount. And so right now our schools need these positions filled.
no one is questioning whether we're going to do this today, Dr. Yeager.
Oh, okay.
Again, it's the providing the board with full information. Second question, what is the teacher alternative school?
It's, we need to hire an ESL teacher to support all the alternative schools. Right now, they don't have.
Oh, okay. The way it sounds, I mean, you said that before, but made it sound like there is a ESL teacher alternative school.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. It's for the alternative school, and we're only
Yeah.
covering part of the South. The
Got it.
grant is covering the rest.
So
My only other comment, Mr. Lopez, is that, the board has not had a discussion of the specific needs assessments. And again, when you go through and look at what the specific requests, and I mentioned it once before, a couple of them say they need a full-time intervention teacher, And when I mentioned that, I think Mr. Anderson said, well, that's going to be on the ESSER request list or something.
Yes, we put
that's
those
the-
on ESSER 2 funding.
So that's one? Is it just one?
I think
So, I
it
mean, my
is.
question to you, Mr. Lopez, is that the state law says that we're to discuss the assessment needs and the board hasn't. Now, you know, that's just indicative of the nature of the beast. But there's other types of supports that, again, if we look at the specific building assessment needs, I believe we perhaps could add to this, but we can put that off into the parking lot again. So thank you. There's no more questions about that.
Thank you, Dr. Nguyen. Just real quick, Mr. Covington, for clarification, again, just so we know exactly what it is we're voting on the line items, starting with the ESL teacher for the alternative school on down are the positions that you're recommending at this time, right? That's what the motion that Dr. Yeager made, that's what's included in her motion.
Correct.
Okay, I just want everybody to make sure we're all on the same page of what that is.
Okay, question. You're not including the assistant principals? You just
You
started
approved
with
that
the
at a previous
alternative
meeting.
school? I'm sorry.
You approved that at a previous meeting.
Oh,
Yeah.
that one's been approved.
Yes,
Mhm.
ma'am.
Okay. And she had just mentioned the interventionist teachers will be on the ESSER fund.
Yes, we submitted that to the state on our ESSER 2 plan.
And do you have a number of how many? Because when you do look at their needs assessment, they're all asking for some additional help.
I
So-
think
There are 7, good afternoon, or good morning, whatever day it is. Good morning, everyone. There are 7 intervention teachers that have been identified for our CSI schools. Those are the lowest performing schools in the Kansas City, Kansas Public School District, and the lowest 5%. So they have been identified as buildings that could use an intervention teacher. So we have 7 that have been identified for those CSI schools.
Okay, now, I know we said those are the lowest performing, but we seem to be performing low everywhere. So the others wouldn't need it?
Well, our goal is that we could utilize ESSER 3 funds when those become available, or when they ask us what we will need, that we could put those, the rest of the schools on that budget for intervention teachers that will help support the gap in learning caused by COVID.
And do you know when you'll know about that? Just,
I have to refer to Tracy or Dennis on that.
the ESSER
I
3
think
fund.
we have the number or the projected number, but there's been no official release of that you can start spending these dollars.
Okay,
And I'm sure we're gonna have to submit a plan like we did with ESSER 2.
Yes,
okay. Would you know, can you tell us an estimate of how much that is?
I think it was close to 80 million
I
Okay.
think so.
Okay, thank you.
for ESSER 3.
Gotcha.
Other questions or discussion? There's a motion and a second on the floor. Other questions, discussion? If not, Ms. Smith, would you please do a roll call vote?
Yolanda Clark,
Yolanda Clark, yes.
Maxine Drew,
Maxine Drew, yes.
Janie Humphries,
Janie Humphries, yes.
Randy Lopez,
Randy Lopez, yes.
Wanda Brownlee Page,
Wanda Brownlee Page, yes.
Dr. Nguyen,
Dr. Nguyen, yes.
Dr. Yeager,
Dr. Yeager, yes.
Motion passes. Thank you, everybody.
Randy, ready to move forward?
Yes, sir.
Okay. The next section is additional staffing for central office. We're not asking for any approval on any of these positions right now, but that's the list that we determined that Well, I can't say you approved the top one at the last meeting, so that one's taken care of. And the staffing for the equity is something we have to do because those people are currently here. And the rest of them would be brand new positions.
What did you say, Mr. Covington, that we approved or we received?
No, you approved the title is still wrong. I keep forgetting to change the title, so I apologize. The associate superintendent.
Okay.
Which
Oh,
is the top
correct.
line.
Okay.
Yeah.
We approved that position,
Yes, ma'am.
but when we approved the equity and inclusion position, right?
Those are currently in the people that's sitting there. And remember, we funded those out of the disproportionality funding, and that funding expires in September. So unless we're going to send those people home, we have to cover those out.
So other than your first position, we have not approved these positions.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. We have to be real careful with our words.
Yes.
So to clarify, is there a current need for these positions right now as we speak?
You mean to hire them like right now?
Right.
Ones. Anything on the list, you mean, Dr.
Yes,
Yeager?
that's not been approved yet.
Well, I would say you need all of these. But if you want, I mean, we need the custodial supervisors. I'm quite certain as we get ready for school to start. And I will speak for myself, but yes, I could use my HR people now versus later, of course. So, I mean, I think everybody would say yes. That it would be obviously easier to be recruiting some of these positions currently versus waiting.
I make a motion that we approve the listing on the screen with the positions that still need to, that have not been approved from the proposed additional staffing.
I second it.
There is a motion and a second. I'll open up for questions and discussion.
I have a question for staffing for central office. Have we included an operator for our phone service? Because when you try to call, if you don't know what department you need to go to, it's hard to figure that out. And I know if we're struggling, what about our parents? They can't connect to anyone. So will we include, is that going to go on this list or is it under another list?
But that position is currently in the budget. And so we just need to fill that job.
Yeah, and Randy, didn't you say that Dr. Stubblefield was having KASB come in and do like an audit of central office staff to make sure we had everything aligned and do like a realignment or audit of our central office staff to be sure we had everything that we needed?
Sure, thanks, Janie. So Dr. Stubblefield has contacted, or Dr. Miguel, and working with Dr. Miguel, contacted KASB to come in and do just an overview of our organization, our organizational staffing, and I believe is looking at another potential group to come in and kind of help with that organizational chart, if you will. And I'm probably not.
Randy, I talked to Dr. Stubblefield on that issue. And KASB is currently working on that she's asked them to do, and she has an estimated completion date of July 20th.
So I would feel more comfortable waiting until Dr. Stubblefield comes in and that's finished to vote on these, since they're not directly related to teaching staff in the schools. That's just my preference.
They are from the perspective of their support for the schools. And it does impact our ability to support schools. I'll just be very blunt.
So like HR probably has a need to hire in more people to do more outreach. Marketing, we have to have someone out there marketing people. Custodians have to get the rooms clean. We just talked about help desk and putting it out there for our community to apply sooner than later, I think is very important.
Well, let me make a substitute motion to, first, we've already approved number 1 item. And you know you're going to keep the number 2 item. It's just a matter of budgeting. But make a substitute motion to put on the to-do approval list right now, the HR manager and HR assistant. That's the motion.
I saw Edwin on here. Edwin, is there a need for a media marketing specialist?
Well, again, the position as it is now, the person that's in this particular administrative support professional, we moved them into our office when we got here, Sharita and I. The duties that are being done under this position are not accurately defined under the duties of the administrative support professional. So again, yes, we need this changed because of the fact that the duties that we are assigning under this particular title, there is not in line in what's being done. And so the marketing and that sort of thing, taking photos, writing stories. Yes, just as Kelly has stated, I need this position approved so that we can continue to do the work that we're doing.
Well, Mr. Lopez, there was a motion. So did you get a second or did you not get a second?
Second.
Now discussion. Now, what I would respond to Mr. Birch, do you have a little bit of homework to do? You're saying one position is not clear, but you know you need a new position. Do you have the clear job description and what happens to the other? Do you have that now?
Yeah.
And I ask you that now. Have you submitted it to us?
I
for
have
approval?
submitted.
You
Yes.
just submitted the title. Have you submitted what I'm saying is that today we could approve the HR manager and HR assistant,
Right.
and boom, she starts hiring. And Ms. Tishman, you'll like this. So you won't have to hear our mouths of not hiring people or having vacancies, things like that. That would then give you a week or whatever. You haven't, if I'm correct, you have not submitted to us a clean job description. Am I incorrect or correct?
You are incorrect because I have submitted that to HR. So
Yeah.
that job description
Okay.
and that
But you
change
have,
and that case of investment has been submitted. Yes,
Yeah.
ma'am.
Okay. Well, again, I would call for the question of whether we would do the 2 or someone could do a substitute motion to include the marketing specialist. But for me, that's as far as I go, because for right now, it appears HR is a little bit more important than you, but that's just how, because of vacancies. But I understand, Mr. Birch, you're saying you're there too. So I'm willing to amend my motion to include the marketing, but that's the extent of my amendment.
Just for clarity, I think there was already a motion by Dr. Yeager and seconded by Ms. Drew. So I don't know, unless they modify.
No, you can amend the motion that trumps that motion. A substitute motion trumps it. Now, you don't have to ask for their approval that's if you ask them to approve. Now, you can very easily vote that down and go back to the original motion.
If we vote for what the substitute motion is, the other one is still on the floor for us to continue with as well.
No, it doesn't. No, a substitute substitutes. Not amends, substitutes.
So that would say that, if we didn't approve the other positions, then we would have to go back and approve the other.
Correct. Now you're correct.
So your substitute motion currently, Dr. Nguyen, is for the 2 HR positions only. Is that correct?
And as I said, I would then substitute that to include the marketing specialist, but that's it. So the new substitute motion is marketing, HR manager, HR assistant now.
And I have one piece of clarification. Kelly.
Wait. You got to have a second.
Second.
Now,
Kelly, could you clarify, did all the other positions also submit a description for those to be immediately filled?
Yeah, I mean, all the case for investments were submitted, so you guys have those in the write-ups, and we do have job descriptions for them, so,
I have
yeah.
a question, the help desk manager, the help desk assistant, the instructional device manager, are those are positions that would support Mr. Hoda's department? Is that
Yes,
correct?
sir.
And
Right.
currently-
Devices and teacher devices.
Right. A concern I do have is, he's running with a very small staff of large district, and so that my concern would be holding that up as well. I kind of see those as pretty critical as we enter into the school year. So,
Well, it's a compromise because Ms. Humphrey said 0. Okay, so because you have to have, we're meeting what, next week, a week from now, but that's just a substitute motion. Hey, if it goes down, it goes down. If the other thing goes down, nothing is done. So consider your options.
Not necessarily, even if the substitute motion passes, we could still go back and make a motion for the other position.
That's true.
okay.
It was just an attempt to compromise.
I have a question on the instructional device manager. Is money coming from somewhere else? This person is only getting $15,000.
No, it's incremental. That's the incremental piece, right, Dennis?
Yes, that's correct. And not against anything on this list, but those technology positions are truly needed during the summer as soon as we can get them. That's the one that's supporting repairing all those devices for students, teachers, central office.
Everything on the list is really needed. Let's just be honest. But I appreciate you considering me first, but I have to be honest, everything's needed.
Are there other questions or discussion? The substitute motion currently, just for clarification, is for the HR manager, HR assistant, and the marketing specialist. Other questions, discussion?
At the end of the day, and this is why I would appreciate someone having a conversation with Dr. Stubblefield as the directive to Brian Jordan. If, let's say, a custodian supervisor was determined as not needed, what is the consequence? What's the, I haven't talked to Ms. Humphrey, so I don't know what her point was, but so we're jumping off and hiring folks and saying we need them. So they're then released after 6 months or what? How does that work?
And I don't know the answer to your question, Dr. Nguyen, and I'm just going to clarify. I don't know how deep that KASB organizational review is going to get, if it'll get down into those positions or not, or if it's more of a higher level org chart at the level. So I don't know the answer to your question, Dr. Nguyen.
Maybe we can have a conversation with what Dr. Stubblefield asked for with Dr. Stubblefield.
Okay, can I ask a clarifying question? We're first going to vote on Dr. Nguyen's motion,
Correct.
Yes.
and then we will go back and vote on Dr. Yeager's motion.
Yes, I'll remake the motion of the positions that did not make it.
Okay, thank you.
So, Ms. Smith, any further questions? Not Ms. Smith, please roll call.
I do.
Ms.
So
Clark.
I do. First motion does not include all positions here on this list. If that motion
There
has,
is a substitute motion on the floor that only includes marketing specialist, HR manager, HR assistant, because we've already included the first, and essentially the second is there. We're just extending, if Mr. Covington can correct me if I'm wrong, extending the money for the position. You're not destroying the position. Correct, Mr. Covington?
That's correct. We have to fund those positions. Or
But we
those
have-
people walks out on September 30th.
And you know we're gonna fund it.
Did that answer your question, Ms. Clark? Okay.
Trying to come off mute, yes.
Thank you. All right, Ms. Smith, please roll call vote.
Okay, just so I'm clear on the motion, this is only for the HR manager, assistant, and specialist.
Correct, those 3 positions, yes.
To fund today.
Today.
And that the others will probably be funded tomorrow.
Thank you. Yolanda Clark.
You're on
Yolanda.
mute.
Coming off mute is always a hard thing to do. Sorry. Yolanda Clark, yes.
Maxine Drew.
Maxine Drew, no.
Janie Humphries.
Janie Humphries, yes.
Randy Lopez.
Randy Lopez, yes.
Wanda Brownlee Page.
Wanda Brownlee Page, yes.
Dr. Nguyen.
Dr. Nguyen, yes.
Dr. Yeager, yes.
Motion passes. Thank you.
I make a motion that we approve the positions of help desk manager, help desk assistant, instructional device manager, staffing for equity and inclusion department
So moved.
funding.
Second.
Motion and a second. Question, discussion?
Mr. Lopez, can I just make for clarification? So that would leave just the custodian supervisors unapproved.
Right, so we can get additional clarification for that area.
Correct. Okay. Further discussion, other questions?
I think yes, just getting additional clarification for that area. Is there some, I don't know, I think that would really help me too with the custodian position.
Well, let me see if I can provide a little clarification right now. We have over 260 custodians. We got 1 supervisor. 1.
Okay.
And I don't need to inform the board of the issues we have in custodial staff.
Yeah, but what does that do? So, Mr. Covington, what does that do for like head custodians of buildings? So when we say over 200 supervisors, there is a direct supervisor over those 200. So are we counting those head custodians? And
No.
were they?
No.
So we're truly not, I mean, one person is truly not overseeing 200 people. They're truly overseeing the direct head custodians of those buildings. And what's that number count?
No, that is not how this district is set up. Head custodians do not evaluate daytime or nighttime custodians. They are not their supervisor.
Head custodians of buildings are not the supervisors. So they're still, so the head custodian of the building, what is their role?
Organized work.
Organized work, assigned work, but they are not their supervisor.
Well, yeah, I think, I mean, I'm gonna be quiet. Okay.
So do we want to add on based upon the custodian supervisor? Would there like to be a friendly motion from anyone to add on the custodial supervisor at this time?
I don't understand how 3 people are still gonna oversee 200 people. I mean, it doesn't add up for me. That's my opinion only. So you're saying now we have 3 people and you're gonna divide out 200 people amongst 3. And the head custodians are in position, but it sounds like they don't have authority. I just don't understand it.
I think we need to hire the custodian supervisors and keep them on the list, because professionally they have set this up and looked at the entire process of how things are going to be done. And we have to trust them, the leadership, that they're going to do what is necessary to address this issue. Later, if we need to bring in more people, we can. But right now, I think we need to continue with the custodian supervisors on the list.
And Ms. Drew, I appreciate that. But one thing I do want to say, and I want to level set, is when you have curiosity about something, that doesn't mean that there's lack of trust. I can only speak from my voice only. But I think that the stage is being set that when you ask questions, that because you're asking those questions, you don't trust the staff. My voice only says I'm curious and I want to know what I'm voting for.
No, I'm not saying you don't trust. I'm just bringing that in, that we know that they are trying to do the best that they can for our staff. So
Not
I
just-
appreciate what you're saying, and I am in full support of agreeing with you in your asking the questions. Let's include them and keep them on the list.
And not comment, Ms. Clark, we, when we bring something forward, we take into account the need and the budget. The program that we had outlined would to have a custodial supervisor that's assigned by a high school corridor. But that would mean we need to add 4 more instead of 2. But when we look at the budget needs, we figure we'll go 2, see how that works, and we may have to ask for 2 more at a later time. But no, having 3 is still not enough, but it's better than 1.
So Mr. Covington, that helps me. So earlier in our conversation, we talked about like trusting the proposals, but because I don't know the sausage making that happened in the background, that part, that piece right there says to me, we understand we probably will need more when it comes to 200, because now you're dividing and conquering and you're giving out what, 67 employees to 1 person. And that still didn't make sense to me. So
Right.
understanding that, okay, in our pipeline, we're saying, you know, that in the future we could need someone else. This is more of our starting point. That gives me the clarification that I need. Thank you.
So Maxine, are you asking Stacy to amend her motion to include the custodial supervisors?
Yes, I am.
And Stacy, are you amending your motion?
Yes, I'll accept the amendment. Yolanda has to approve as well because she was, who was the seconder?
Yolanda, Ms. Clark, do you accept the amendment?
Yes, I do. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So the motion has been amended, Ms. Smith. The motion now includes the custodian supervisor positions that are on the table as well. Board, I did just forward you on the KASB proposal of the scope of work that they're doing. You should have had that in your, seen that previously, but just as a reminder, I did resend it to you just now, so you have that as well. Other questions or discussion? If not, Ms. Smith, would you do a roll call vote? Again, the amended motion is to accept the positions of staffing for equity and inclusion, custodian, supervisor, the help desk positions, and the instructional device manager position.
Yolanda Clark,
Yolanda Clark, yes.
Maxine Drew,
Maxine Drew, yes.
Janie Humphrey,
Janie Humphries, yes.
Randy Lopez,
Randy Lopez, yes.
Wanda Brownlee Page,
Wanda Brownlee Page, no.
Dr. Nguyen,
Dr. Nguyen, no.
Yeager.
Dr. Yeager, yes.
Motion passes. Thank you for the discussion. All righty, Mr. Covington, anything else on this slide that you need to cover? If not, we can move
Well,
forward.
thank you, Mr. Lopez, for sending the purpose of study. It doesn't answer a lot of questions, but we'll find out.
And I'll reach out to Dr. Stubblefield just to get maybe a little bit more clarification based on the
Yeah.
questions that were asked today. So I'll get more information. Thank you.
The last piece of the operating budget is the sustaining operations piece. With the major one being the Diploma Plus. And Janie, you had sent me a question about the Diploma Plus budget. The total support that the district does for the Diploma Plus program is about $8 million. But this piece is what covers the tuition, the books, and part of the transportation that we couldn't cover before according to state statute.
Okay. So do we pay for like the college and career coordinators at the high school level out of that
Yes.
budget?
Yes, out of their total budget, yes.
And what other positions do we pay for out of that budget?
Oh, you got the CTE staffing, you got the coordinators, we got some facilitators. There's a lot of staffing. I can get you a list of all the staffing positions, but that budget is about $8 million.
8 million?
Yes.
And like, are there programs like like the college fairs and stuff, does that come out of that budget? Or do the individual schools pay for that or?
The Lois College Fair that we had, yes, that comes out of that budget.
Okay.
Before we go any further, sorry, I should keep track of time. We're going to take a quick recess so folks can stretch their legs. I know we've been on the call for 2 hours now, so we'll take a quick
10-minute?
10-minute recess, and we'll be back in about 10 minutes. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt the conversation, but just to give everyone time to stretch their legs.
Good break.
Thank you. All righty. Folks are coming back. Thanks for the grace for a little break there. Okay, let's see. I see Dr. Yeager, Ms. Humphreys, Ms. Drew. All right, Mr. Covington. All right. Thank you. Looks like we've got everyone back. So we'll jump right back in. We are recording again. So thanks for allowing us a little brief break. So Mr. Covington, we'll continue with this slide. Ms. Humphreys, I'm not sure if you had additional question or if we were, if you had completed your thoughts there.
I think my thoughts are completed for now.
Ms. Humphreys, did you ever get an answer about paying the high school teachers who teach the college classes?
Mr. Covington said that Dr. Irvin is out of the office this week and they'll have an answer for me on Monday.
Good. Well, the answer is yes. And the student gets college credit if they pass and high school credit as well for the same class.
Yeah, but I'm wondering how the teachers get their pay and how that's worked out with the adjunct professor pay and stuff. So we should have an answer on Monday.
Great.
I do have a question on this slide. I think I asked it previously, just kind of generically. With the diversity and inclusion line item here. So I know the previous slide, we have approved the staffing for it. So those dollars were just for salaries, staffing wise. This is additional money for, so outside of that, there's currently no, is there money in, what's money in their department? Like if they wanted to do anything, so there's currently nothing in there. So that's what this 50,000
plus $23,000 for recruitment programs for diversity and $27,000 for the running of the diversity department.
Okay, so my question is, and my wondering is if, and I know we'd have to, balance the budget, so it'd have to, come from somewhere, or how we would fund it is that sufficient if one of our priorities is around inclusion and diversity work, is that sufficient for a district of our size and for some of the things that that department wants to do? Should we allocate more resources to that department to do some of the work like training or recruitment or other things that they're wanting to do? I guess that's what I'm wondering.
And Randy, let me just add, the head of that department was not on staff when that was proposed. I just knew we needed to do something.
Yeah, no, I think we just approved our hiring maybe a month or so ago or two. So I would just ask maybe if you, as you work with her and the staff, maybe if there's additional needs. And I may be the only one that thinks we.
No, I will agree with you, Mr. Lopez. That probably Dr. Stubblefield comes on board on Thursday. Is that correct? The first?
Thursday.
That is a conversation that I think the board needs to have immediately because first, diversity and equity is one of her strong suits. And I would almost anticipate programming, the professional development. I don't know whose budget that comes out of, but I would almost anticipate we need to leave that open-ended for additional discussion.
No, I agree, and that's why I was just wondering is if the board was interested in looking at that again. So, Mr. Covington and Ms. Tishman, maybe when Dr. Stubblefield comes on and as you speak with the director of the department,
I just wanted to clarify too, Randy, because I don't know it's real obvious. Already in the HR budget, we obviously in our recruitment budget also, there's a lot of things we do that advertise and communicate with that lens. And so it's already in there. This was really specifically carved out so we could do more specific things with buildings. So yeah, so I don't want to give any impression that there's not other dollars. It's already embedded in other people's budgets. So it would be interesting to kind of think about, though, if we need to somehow understand how much we are spending in this area.
Yeah, no, I agree. I know that department and different departments are doing some work in DEI, but I think, maybe, again, looking at our budget and prioritizing, maybe it's cultural sensitivity training, maybe it's, there's all kinds of resources out there, things that we can do that are going to cost money potentially. And again, Dr. Stubblefield has done a lot of this work. He helped do some work in Lawrence with passing some DEI work. And so I'm excited about that, but I just wonder if that's going to take some more resources than the 50,000 allotted.
And Mr. Covington, what was the budget last year? What was their budget? They had to before Jason left. They didn't have a budget?
No, ma'am. They went to the deputy superintendent to get stuff that they needed.
Well, 50,000 is not enough.
Well, for clarification, this 50,000 is under the jurisdiction of HR, correct?
Part of it's recruitment and part of it's
23 is in HR, 27 would be in the department.
Okay, so most definitely 27,000 for a year of this magnitude. Because again, let me explain again, KSB is coming out with an equity mission statement. Now, it doesn't come with funds.
Right.
And then that says something about our district when you just say $50,000. That speaks volumes. That in itself says what we think of it. Now, if we think more, then we got to do more. If it's an important issue, then it ought to be reflected in the budget.
So I'll get with Dr. Stubblefield and the new director and see what plans they have, and we'll get an updated number for our next meeting.
And I know we also had talked about it previously, but some type of incentive for hiring direct Kansas City, Kansas residents, District 500 residents. We have put a pin in there, but something to, as an incentive to live in Kansas City, Kansas in our district. We had talked about that a little last year, but I don't think we included that specifically for recruiting, retention, or anything of that nature.
And it gets a little bit complicated because of the negotiated agreement with teachers. It also has to be part of that, right? Not just for classified. I don't know how but I think it's a good question.
That's where the problem came up in negotiations, because you had to open it up to everybody. And that was a problem. So how do you do that and do it equitably? And that just doesn't work out.
No. It'd be a big price tag.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Other questions or thoughts on this slide?
But let me bring you all up to speed a little on our district insurance premiums. I had a meeting Tuesday with Aon, who's our provider. Our property insurance based on market index insurance is going up about 30%. Due to our low number of claims, our policies is going to be going up maybe 8 to 10%. But it's about $100,000. The other major issue that we're going to have to face along with everybody in this country is this cybersecurity. When cybersecurity first came out, it was like, okay, we need something. I think our policy is either 20 or 26,000. We're going to have to evaluate if we need to continue cybersecurity. So those premiums are now in the range of $150,000. And so we're in discussion with the provider to see what our risk factor is as a school district and how our system is set up to where they can't get into Business Plus because we don't have direct emails going into Business Plus, which is our accounting system. And so based on those type analysis, we're hoping our policy premiums will not be as high. And if they decline those safety measures, I would have to come back to you all to say, do we want to continue covering cybersecurity? Because it's going to be, like I said, around $150,000. And you all know, due to all the hacking with the federal system, the pipeline, the gas system, cybersecurity is not as big. And so insurance carriers are trying to protect themselves. So I bring y'all some more info as soon as I get that back. But the property one is going to cost us about $100,000 if we maintain that our deductible is $100,000 right now. If we take it to $250,000 as the deductible, the increase will be about $68,000 instead of $100,000. But then you run the risk of, you know, covering $250,000 at one pot. Now I can say in the last 10 years, we had 2 claims. Now both of them were small. But that's the insurance risk.
Can I just add in a clarification I just got from Lisa Walker, who reminded me? We're forgetting that we also do spend money in Title II funds for diversity and inclusion. So just don't want to give anybody the impression that we're not spending money in this area. It's just that it comes out of different buckets.
What do we spend it on?
I don't know. I was just letting you guys know. So I think we need to just give a whole view of the whole D&I.
Yes.
And I agree with that, but I just wanted to clarify that.
Does she know what percent? Can she give a dollar amount?
I shouldn't have introduced. I don't know that. I'm just passing it
Okay.
along. But I think it's just, I just wanted to make sure people were aware that there's more money being proposed than 50,000.
She's on air.
Right, we're still in the process of determining what she needs, first of all, and then what we can give her this year, and then look at moving forward, you know, how we can plan in more funds for DEI use. I do think it's important for them to have both general funds, however, and federal funds, because as you all know, there are some specific guidelines for how we can or cannot use federal funds. So she will need both.
Can you kind of not today, give us an idea of what you've spent on it this past year?
We can do that. Sure.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Lopez, that is the end of the operating budget. Now we do have the capital in the school, the library and child nutrition.
Thank you, Mr. Covington. No, any other questions here before we move forward? Okay.
This is the capital budget. As you all know, we have the 8 meals for the capital budget. It equates to about $10.5 million. And on the left-hand side is the 2021 budget. The right-hand side is 21-22 budget. The highlights in blue are the things that we're changing. The major change is those HVAC RTU replacement units. Somewhere back, I guess 10, 15 years ago, there was some program where we was a clean air something that we bought all these units at one time. Now they're all failing. And so each year we replace some of the units. This year we had $600,000 in the budget. We ended up spending $1 million to do the 6 schools. We just took those dollars from, I think we didn't do the athletic field. So we're going to increase that line for next year. And we're also going to put some of those units into ESSER 3. Our price tag is very large. When we put in those units, no one thought about replacing them. And they normally last, I think the guy told me, 8 to 10 years. So they're all coming to the end of life. So we got to start replacing them. So that's the major change from 600,000 to $1 million. The rest of them are minor changes. The TIS hardware rotation, that's the servers and all that equipment for our technology. But there was hardly any other major changes to that program.
Mr. Covington, I got a
Yes, ma'am.
question for you. You said they were gonna do it. I don't know if it comes in under this budget. Northwest, that grassy area,
That's covered under the bond. We are working on that. Yes.
Okay, gotcha.
I got to get back to them because the question now is they was trying to make it a field you can play an actual game on. And if they've done that, there would be no walking track. But my last conversation with them, we're going to do a practice field instead of the 100 yards and the 2 end zones. It would be 100 yards without the end zone, so we can still have the community use the walking trail.
Okay. Thank you.
Dennis, a couple questions about our fields and the lights and the things of that nature. Is any of that included in here for the upkeep of that, as well as some of the equipment or stadium upkeep? I know when I go to Sumner's games, some of those benches and things are a need. So is that things included in that as well?
If it's not listed on that right, ma'am, the answer will be no. Field maintenance is covered through our facilities maintenance budget. They're responsible for maintaining the fields. Now, if there's bleacher issues and stuff like that, we could cover that out of that equipment budget line for the district. But I just need to have someone to notify me so I can have somebody come out and look at those. I do know that there are some situations in some of the schools that one of the ADs called me about, but those would be either capital or district equipment line items.
Okay, and then another question. I know that we still have reserves for from Sumner, the money that was collected. Have we had any discussion about what to do with that reserve money?
No, I'm hoping to bring back a proposal for you all to use those dollars to do that Eisenhower complex, but we're still in conversations with the UG.
Okay, thank you.
And Mr. Covington, speaking of Sumner, old Sumner, a lot of their artifacts are in one room. Have they thought about moving that stuff where it's not junky and that it's presented in a way? I'm just being honest. I mean, it has excellent artifacts that is a part of their history, their story, and it should be set up and put on display and not stuff stacked on the floor.
I have not had any conversations with the Sumner staff about either converting a classroom into their historical room. That probably is something they could do. I don't know how many numbers of classrooms they need to continue instruction, but no one has contacted me about doing a historical room other than the one that they already have.
You know, that is a conversation that could coincide with the archives, the documents of the district, because while those artifacts are owned by the Sumner Alumni Association, they do reflect the history of the district. So that could be combined with the conversation with acid-free boxes and things like that, that preserve. And I would think that our librarian would have expertise in, making some of those suggestions, although, a Truman Library has different things than the Kansas City, Kansas Library, but we do have a Quindaro room. We do have, documents that are totally protected in our own public library. So, that's a conversation that brings in an archivist, brings in the professionals, but it could also include the Sumner documents that we could bring in the conversation with the Sumner alumni. On another point, Mr. Covington, And you know, I'm obsessed with a lot of things, including the number of vehicles we have. Is this that we will purchase a new vehicle every year? Is that what the 13.5 is?
No, the 13.5 covers the vehicles that we currently lease. The next line, the 135, is what we use to replace the aging vehicles out of the shop. And then you have the bus rotation of the 400,000. Those are the only
Right.
vehicles.
You know, buses stand alone, but I'm still concerned that we have too large of a fleet, and that could be cost savings there. Is there any reason? Well, the real question is, can we, do we have to spend all of the 10.5 million annually?
No, ma'am. You do not.
Okay. So the HV replacement, that million could, if we were to decide, if the board was to decide, it could be placed on the ESSER funds, and $1 million could be saved for later.
Yes, I think that is
Yes.
correct, ma'am.
I mean, I know it's correct. I just said it. And that, what does IRC stand for, please?
That's our
Instructional Resource
Instructional
Center.
Resource Center for the band equipment and orchestra. When we moved the fees, well, when we canceled the fees, the 160,000 was for her to get caught up with what the fees would have paid for that year, and the 50,000 what she needs ongoing to keep those musical instruments and things up.
Okay.
So
So other than just the HVAC, that's the only thing that can be used, can be supplemented by the federal dollars, the ESSER funds.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay,
Because
thank you.
it has a air quality piece for ESSER.
Exactly.
So, Mr. Covington, you're saying that last year, waiving the $35 a year rental fee for musical instruments, we supplemented from our capital outlay $160,000 to keep that budget whole.
Yes,
But this year we only need $50,000.
correct. It was not just to keep the budget whole. She still had a backlog of stuff that the fees were not covering. So we just fixed it all that she needed that 1 year, and the 50 is what she needed ongoing.
So $50,000 is what usually comes in each year to help replace instruments.
And I think it was a little lower than that, but
And that's going to be adequate to keep all of our students
yes, ma'am.
with good quality instruments and
Yes,
keep
ma'am.
our music program growing.
Yes, ma'am. According to the department head.
Because that's one thing our district has been known for, is investing in our students to make sure that all of our kids have had access to quality musical instruments in a music program in an urban district. And our community has been very proud of that. And that's why we've always had, we're one of the few districts around here who have furnished instruments to our students. And even the students who could not afford the $35 yearly rental fee, we've waived that for our students who could not afford that. I just want to make sure that we are adequately funding that, and that our kids have those quality instruments and access to them. So, okay, thank you.
Mr. Covington, I have a question. I don't know if it falls here or not. I'm just, and you can tell me if not, now's not the time, but I'm curious about Fairfax. I know there's been conversation about a potential new building for Fairfax, since the one they're in currently isn't really adequate, or so just curious if that falls here, or kind of if there's an update you can give on that.
Well, myself and Doug, the facility manager, went and toured the 3 vacant schools, Bethel, Parker, and the other one I can't remember, but
White Church.
White Church. That facility is ready to where we can move Fairfax into that facility next year, if that's the decision of the board. If there's some minor things that we would have to do, but that facility could host Fairfax.
Okay, so if we wanted to do something, I mean, we would need to move on that pretty quickly though, in order to get it up and ready.
Yeah, we would take probably the month of July to get it ready for students for the Fairfax.
So I'll make a motion today if you want to, Mr. Lopez.
Well, I mean, I'm curious if it's ready, or if staff, Mr. Covington, have you all had enough time to?
Yes, I've talked to the principal at Fairfax and he's ready.
Okay.
So moved. Oh, sorry.
Second.
So there's a motion and a second. Further questions or discussion? Anything else? Any other information that would be helpful, Mr. Covington, as we consider this? I mean, what questions do you have of us, or what should we be?
I have no questions, sir. I wholeheartedly agree with you all that we can move Fairfax over to White Church.
White Church, that's what I wanted clarity on. Any concerns with, I know we have transportation, but any concerns with transportation and staff moving from one place in the city to another place? Any of those concerns?
Not according to the principal.
I think my question would be the naming. I know a couple of years back, there was a concern about the name of Fairfax. That probably could be considered later. I don't think we would want to name it White Church either, but, not right now, but just.
You all have a policy on naming of schools?
We do. We do.
But again, that's not for right now. We can go ahead and vote again. I'm saying put that on the list.
Dennis, quick question. I'm sorry, just clarification though too. I just want to make sure there's a plan. If we move to do this today, that there's already a plan, or there can be a plan to effectively, efficiently make this move, that the board, that we're ready to do this. I guess is my question. Are we ready as a district, you all as staff? If the board says, hey, we want to do this today, do you all have a plan and are ready to make that move?
Yes. It will be a notification to staff as to their new work site. There'll be some minor stuff that we got to do as the facilities team to do some painting or do some minor stuff in the building. And as far as transportation, the bus route was, instead of going to Fairfax, would come to White Church. So as an operational team, and something better about that, we have to get Josh's team, child school nutrition. They'll have a kitchen there. So he will have to staff that, but that is something we can do.
Okay.
My only question is on accessibility.
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 Yeah, it has a lot of stairs and stuff. Is it going to be accessible? Do we have any physical accessibility issues?
It doesn't have any more than where they are now.
No, okay, that was
ADA compliant. I can answer that. That building is not ADA compliant.
No, it's not. But will we be able to work around any of those issues, if there are any?
Yeah, because there's a backside into the building
Okay.
that a wheelchair can get into.
Okay, that was my only question, because that is one of the problems with some of our older buildings, especially that one with the multi-levels. But
I would just ask if this is, and nothing that we have to, we'll decide today, but is this a short-term solution? What's the long-term plan or a long-term solution? So just keeping that in mind as well as we move forward. So other questions or discussion? Otherwise, there's a motion and a second. Ms. Smith, would you do a roll call, please?
Londa Clark,
Wanda Clark, yes.
Maxine Drew,
Maxine Drew, yes.
Janie Humphries,
Janie Humphries, yes.
Randy Lopez,
Randy Lopez, yes.
Wanda Brownlee Page,
Yes, yes, yes.
thank you. Dr. Nguyen,
Dr. Nguyen, yes.
Dr. Yeager, yes.
Great, thank you. Motion passes. Mr. Covington, just one other question on the capital. Curious, I know we do have a few swimming pools in the district. Is that maintenance and upkeep? Is there anything that we need to be worried about with any of our pools right now?
The maintenance and upkeep, no.
Repairs
I
or
can tell
anything?
you, we are in conversation with Park and Rec about a partnership for opening these pools up in the summer. Unfortunately, due to a lifeguard shortage, we couldn't get it done this summer. But we are in conversations to make sure it happens next summer, that they can staff opening our pools up.
But in terms of the pools, like that, they're structurally they're okay.
Oh yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
I have a question. If we do, like for instance, Dr. Wynn mentioned the ESSER funds for the 1 million. If we did possibly move a portion of that to get a couple of extra days of holiday pay that Wanda was asking initially, would that be available?
Like you can't use capital money to pay that staff, that kind of bonus or stipend. It has to be on capital projects.
So if we move that money out, we wouldn't be able to pay salary with this budget here. Okay.
Mr. Covington.
Yes, ma'am.
I have a question about Sumner. Some are saying that something's wrong with the pool. The pool is leaking. That was brought to my attention. That the pool is leaking, that there's some foundational problems with it.
Okay, I'll take a look at that. But I know they're not using the pool.
Well, that's one of the reasons why they said they weren't using it. Because I asked about that when I went to the protest at Parkwood, and people asked, well, what about the schools? But someone said, again, I'm asking now, I'm not trying to put you on Front Street, but people in the community are saying they were told the pool was leaking. There's some foundational issues.
Ma'am, I will look into that, but we filled that pool up last year and it was never even used. So I question why we even filled it up. Okay. The school does not even have a swimming class. That was a recommendation brought forth to me they want to cement the thing in and make it a wrestling room. I'm like, I don't see us doing that.
Yeah.
But
well, can you check that? Because I don't know if it's true. It was just somebody said, are you sure the pool will be there?
And also, that's something to talk to the educational staff about, getting a swim team there, a swim initiative there. You know, there's many organizations that sponsor a swim team initiative, like my sorority. We're really heavy on making sure that children know how to swim in our area, not to mention the young man who passed away in the swimming pool because he wasn't able.
Sumner Pool is not a pool that you can have any kind of meets or anything in, because it's small, but you can learn to swim in it.
Yeah, that would be good.
Well, again, what I mentioned initially, there may be an opportunity to take that $1 million if there are repair issues that we could consider supplementing it. And there, I mean, $1 million can surely repair 3 swimming pools.
Yes.
Because we're talking about, if we're going to use them, we're talking locker rooms and things like that. And I'm sure since COVID, there probably are some upgrades that could be installed.
Right.
So
when we meet with Park and Rec, we will go over what's needed for them to run the pools during the summer.
Yeah. And just because you are not from here, Mr. Covington, Parks and Recs does not have a good track record of providing services in the Northeast area. So I would hope the conversation, you're a polite man, so that's not the point I'm making, but that I've been screaming and hollering about swimming. How many more drownings do we need before the school district really gets proactive? Because Turner Pool is open. And I think the pool out in Bonner is open. So somebody's finding lifeguards. So thank you.
Yeah, our community has really voiced that they will help wherever they need to help, especially with lifeguards and stuff. So I think we just want to make sure that we are clear on why it's not open and maybe not leverage lifeguards. I'm just telling you, I want us to be careful with that. That's just my opinion.
I don't know what you mean, but I wasn't saying lifeguard was the only issue. The lack of lifeguards is a comment that our commissioners have used as a reason for not opening. Yeah, we have Eagle Scouts in our community. We have people who have lifeguard skills. So
no, Doctor, when I think I was speaking to Mr. Covington, I'm sorry, I probably wasn't clear with that. It's just our community is willing to rally around and help. And if we need to get licensed lifeguards in, I think we're on the same page. Right. I think we just should be careful with saying there's a lack of lifeguards because as Ms. Page said, Parkwood was a hot topic and our community was hot about we will do what it takes to get our kids what they need. So
I will caution that the school district, our insurance would not cover us to open the pool for anybody to come in. That's why it needs to go through the park and recs because their insurance covers that.
Okay, thank you.
Will the insurance cover our enrolled students?
Probably. I won't say for sure, but I don't.
Well, would you find out? Because I mean, our students are the ones that don't have opportunities to either learn how to swim because the Y membership is off the charts.
To that,
I would look into that. And like I said, I don't see how that would be any different than our football team being coached by our coach. And we covered that. So I would have our insurance person ask that question.
And
thank you.
Similar comment. The board just passed for the Enough is Enough initiative to partner with programs to open up some of our gyms for programming with our coaches. I wonder, could we do something similar with our pools if we have staff who are on site and as Dr. Nguyen says, if they're open to our students, and our insurance can cover that. Could we do something similar, even moving forward without having to wait for Parks and Rec to do something sooner than later? So I'm just throwing that out there.
Randy, would be if just an instance that whoever you have on staff there and it's open to our kids, our students, if someone from another community comes and get hurt at the pool, we won't be covered and then we're going to be sued.
Right. No, that's why I'm just, saying, how do we explore that similar to what we're doing with Enough is Enough? If it's our students, our coaches or our staff, is there an opportunity to do something?
As long as you don't open it to the public, I think we would be covered. And our staff is there with the kids.
Do our students have student IDs?
I know they all have an ID number. I don't know if they have a picture ID.
High school and middle school do.
No, but not the elementary.
So
maybe not yet, but that wouldn't be hard to do, would it, Dennis?
Well, we are exploring student IDs for tracking for school child
for the school bus.
But we haven't gotten there yet, ma'am.
Well, not let control issues keep us from thinking.
Correct.
Right, thank you. Other questions on the capital slide that we're on now? All right, Mr. Covington.
Okay, the next is our school nutrition budget. And really the only thing to say about this budget is that we had to supplement from ESSER the loss that they covered the last couple of years. That's where you see the $3.6 million here. And even that is just so to keep them whole. And as you know, this year, with us feeding everyone, that this they may dip farther down into their contingency, but we don't know right now until the year is over. So there may be an instance where we have to use ESSER 3 to supplement back the food nutrition program.
So are you keeping a checklist for ESSER 3 right now?
The only thing that I know that we are exploring ESSER 3 for is those air units. That was the only thing that we delayed out of ESSER 2 because we had an idea that ESSER 3 was coming. So, and I knew
So where are the
that
intervention teachers again?
they're in ESSER 2.
So those monies are on their way.
Yes, we've submitted that to the state.
Okay. So Mr. Lopez, someone, perhaps Ms. Smith, and don't like putting a ton of stuff on you, Ms. Smith, but perhaps somebody needs to keep a tally of board discussions, of suggestions to then present to Mr. Covington for uses.
Agree. I've been jotting some things down, but I know Ms. Smith keeps track of me pretty well, so she'll remind me of things. So Ms. Smith, just make some notes for us and we can always touch base on things. Thank you.
So I'll ask again, of the salaries for 21-22, what is this? Does this include the original 1485, 1465 amount?
Yes.
So you're not up to 15 yet for any of these nutritional workers?
No, ma'am, we are not.
Well, I'm going to continue to push for at least that extra 15 cents. And what is that extra 15 cents? I think I asked you that, Mr. Covington, in the email that, again, yes, you received late, but that's a number. 15 cents by what, 263 employees? Just so for discussion purposes, I'd like to have that number.
Okay, I will get it to you.
Thank you.
To clarify, was that a bump to $15 for the ones making less than 15? Is that the increase for those who are already at 15? To bump them up to 15 cents as well?
Dr. Yeager, repeat the question.
I said, are you saying 15 cents is the difference between what someone is making now between $15 an hour? Does that include the people who are currently making $15 an hour? Does that bump them up to $5.15?
Dr. Wynn's question is the people that's making below 15, what's the cost to get them to 15? And the rest, everybody making above 15 will get whatever the classified increase that you all agree to, either the 3% that's proposed or something that you change the number to.
I think it's important to also take into consideration the other increases that would be needed so that it's fair across board like it was calculated previously. So if we bump someone up to $15, but the person's already making $15, already has some level of knowledge, and I think that
the compression.
Yes.
Okay.
And the differences between that he presented were like 15 cents, 50 cents, correct?
Just to get to the starting to 15, but that does not, but then that rolls on to the other levels is what, you know.
Right, and the differences there were like 50 cents and 20 cents. So do you remember those figures, Dr. Yeager?
Right, so that's what I'm asking. If we bump one to see the full picture of what it is.
And so some of this, so what we should be able to show you guys though is the impact of the 3% change. So if we make this 3% increase, you'll be closer, right? Obviously to that $15, especially if we're talking about only being 15 cents difference. But then you don't cause that compression issue. So that's why we need to, that's why I keep saying we got to make everything uniform, move everybody 3%. And then you're really solving your problem. And then if we can get some bigger bumps, but to get the impact that you're talking about, we've talked about before, is pretty substantial. Because
no, I am not talking about carrying that up to the top of the mountain. Just those people who are at the lowest end. And I think, Ms. Tishman, we've had that conversation before. When you expand it, it makes it prohibitive. It's up in the, I think you had 3 or 4 million or something ridiculous. But no, that person at that super bottom, and again, here again, if you know, we need the
yeah.
numbers.
And I'm just going to say that we did not take it all the way up through the other levels. We were considering what were the additional roles in the nutritional services group and operational groups, which would be impacted. And that is where most of our employees are. So it does have a big impact when you start moving to $15 an hour. You know, I'm happy to show those numbers again, but that's all I'm referencing, is it is a much higher impact.
And I think the numbers were not superficial or taking into account to infinity. I think the numbers are reflective of, if we do bump things from the bottom up, there's still people within those areas that we cannot just keep there. I think that's important to note.
Yeah, right. And so, but we're happy to show it again. I mean, really, we've got the data. That's why we proposed the specific areas that we did earlier in our salary recommendations, because they don't have that same compression issue.
Mr. Covington, I have a question about the salaries administration. I mean, they went from last year 94 to 420. Who did they add and what are these positions? Because that's a big jump.
You're on mute, Dennis.
It's not an adding amount. It's the way the Alibu pulled those two titles. If a job is listed in their software as administration versus classified, we didn't add any major numbers of personnel in a category. It's just how the number was pulled out of Alibu.
Okay, so I'm saying last year, help me because I'm not a business person.
That last year's number was just for Josh.
Okay, so who did they add to his administration?
I think it pulled in
all the way up.
I think it pulled in either the dietitian or other type jobs into that category, when previously they were in just the classified salary.
Dennis, that now includes the operations managers, the 3 supervisors over all of the building kitchen sites, where previously those had been in the classified column.
Okay, I was just wondering because it was such a big jump. And I was thinking, well, wow, you know, we're paying them, but then you got the guy at the end of the poll. We're struggling over 15 cents. So just for clarity, help me understand.
So, Mr. Isnard, do you have kind of like 2 sets of books? One that these people are listed and classified, and then one in the accounting system, they're listed as administrators?
No, it truly just depends on the object code. So the last portion of the budget number that you see on the HR agenda, for example, as those change from year to year to make it more accurate for state reporting, numbers can change columns in the budget. So we try to limit that as much as possible. But if we catch a position like that and we decide, you know, that really should be under the administration column for state reporting, then that's when you would see that change happen.
So they're just shifted there for purposes of reporting, not for purposes of salary or benefits.
For appropriate accounting for state reporting, correct.
Okay.
And Mr. Covington, I had another question. It appears nutrition is not set to make a profit the way it used to be. I just from looking at what's going on, that this is something we're going to be dealing with for a while, that they're going to be in the hole always because we're feeding everybody, right? Everybody eats free.
If that continues, yes, we will probably be in the hole. But prior to this, to the pandemic, our child nutrition program was very profitable to the fact it was making too much money. And we were having to spend it down to the legal limit as to what they could carry over.
Okay.
But when the pandemic, with the loss of revenue, and we still maintain all the staff, we're losing money.
So are we looking at that? How do we resolve that for future plans? Where we at least break even? Is that a possibility? Was just wondering, because it doesn't seem like they're gonna be
It's
making
not
any
a way, right? The only way to break even now would be to reduce staff. Because you're not gonna have, well, you get part of the revenue from the government. It's not all just sales or paying students. But with everybody eating free, that does reduce your amount of revenue that comes in.
Okay.
And so to control that, you will have to cut expenses. And your major expenses, as you can see, is the salaries other than the food. And you have to maintain that because we have to feed all the kids.
Okay.
Hopefully next year, well, you're not next year, but the next year, it'll go back to normal.
But as long as the ESSER funds hold out, you can backfill your losses.
Yes, ma'am, you can.
And that's one more cycle or two more cycles?
I think ESSER 3 expires in 2024.
2024.
So for 2 years.
Yeah.
You have 2 years to worry about that.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. And the last budget is the public library. This was submitted by Carol and her team in consultation with the Public Library Board. I don't know if Carol's on the Zoom, but I can try to answer any questions you all may have. And let me just say before it pops up, we are still in conversations about a new library. We met with the team, I think 3 or 4 weeks ago, out at the library to look at a design that had us incorporated into a building. That was just a conversation. There was no type of agreement. They just wanted to show us how it could look. There was some pushback from Carol and myself. And a lot of it comes down to what happens to the building that we currently have if we move across the street. And I was told that that building actually belongs to the UG and not us. So I'm like, well, that doesn't make sense. Because if I'm gonna have to build another library, why wouldn't I sell this one to get the money to build a new one? So this is a process that requires a lot of attention because, like I said, the people that the UG are trying to, well, they have entered the contract to work on that area of the city, and they want to incorporate the library into the new design of what all they're doing down there. But I have several questions, and that was the major one. If you want me to move the library to another site, what happens to the site we're on now? And like I said, do we own the building to where we could sell it to help fund the new one? So we're in a very preliminary stages of any conversation about having a new library there.
I was always under the impression we own the library. So can we check that to make sure?
I think I was told, and I haven't verified this with Greg, that as long as we use that site for educational purposes, we own it. But if, let's say we move off that site and some developer wants to do whatever, it reverts back to the UG because it's not an educational building anymore. And that's what I was told. I have not researched that. But that
Check
doesn't make
to
sense
be
me.
sure.
I don't see why the school district would ever agree to that.
Thank you.
I wasn't here.
Agree. Thank you. Don't give it away because that's what they want.
So I would definitely come back to you all before any kind of conversation like that happens, because that doesn't make sense to me.
It might be worth setting a time where we can just discuss this issue and have board input. I know it's been a while since we last met specifically on the library and with Garcia Architecture, and where we had some in-depth conversation. But Dennis, as you and Carol are learning more, maybe we set up a specific meeting just to cover this issue and to get board feedback on, what is our expectation? What do we want to see as a board, if anything? How do we want to move forward, if any, so that the board can be in the know and be able to make decisions based on, the conversations you all are having and information you can bring to us. So I would suggest maybe in the next couple of months, we get something on the calendar for us, and that'll give you, Carol, time to kind of put together information to present to the board and for us.
And Randy, the architect was in the meeting, and him and I discussed a different proposal that I think works better for the school district. I would love us to go over that so we can present that, but that also requires that some piece of that plot that the UG still owns, that it would require us for them to give that to us, or however that works with the UG in partnership. But as far as a different design of where we can build a new library and incorporate that whole park area. And Mr. Garcia had done a design like that, but we want to meet with that developer that this UG has went into contract with, just to see what their plan was. So that's what that meeting was about.
In the meantime, Mr. Covington, is the boiler still working?
At the library? Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
I'm gonna tell y'all, we do need a library, but the boiler is so old. And if you ever had to ride the elevators in that library, you are risking your life.
So does the boiler run the elevator?
No.
No. So, go back to the original question. If you need it in the meantime to replace the boiler, what does that cost?
I don't know if we could replace that boiler, ma'am, but I will research.
Well, let me put it to you like this. If it broke down today and stopped functioning, you'd have to do something, correct?
Right. I think we could find someone to fix it, but that skill level for that old of a boiler is going away.
Well,
same thing with our elevator system over there. Right now, they have one person that can fix that elevator, and I think he's in his 70s.
Well, that's the nature of the beast as well. But elevators are one thing, you can always take the steps, but not everybody. But a boiler is another thing. So,
yes.
The point of my comment is that while you wait we wait and decide what we're going to do, I'm sure there's some maintenance issues that are being neglected, and that's not good. So,
well, the library has a capital fund that they can use those funds to fix that boiler.
It's not being it's the 12 million.
Well, the levy
capital says 1 million.
The 1,046,610 each year.
Mm-hmm.
But they haven't been spending it.
Correct.
And then one of the things that was mentioned to us in relation to the lighting in the library, which is outdated and they can't find that. So that's something we will need to address as to how we're going to resolve this situation with our public library.
And I imagine they haven't been wanting to do a lot of investment into the old building until they find out what we're going to do. Because you don't want to put a lot of money into that building and then turn around and trash it or tear it down or whatever.
Yeah,
You
I
want to
understand that.
spend it good on it.
Yeah, I understand that, Janie, but if you don't have heating and cooling, and of course, I don't know anything about boilers,
Yeah,
but if you don't have heating and cooling, you got a lot more problems than trashing. And I mean, put it like this, you can always sell a new piece of steel and iron as recycled. J.E. Dunn had all the copper as scrap in the state capitol, and you just figure out how to profit from that.
So I like Randy's idea that we do need to make plans to have a meeting to come to a consensus on what we're going to do about the downtown library so that they can make plans on what needs to be fixed to carry us through till we have a new facility or till we upgrade what we have so that we spend the taxpayer dollars wisely.
And
Nice
let's make sure we
statement.
don't give our soul away. Don't give it to them. Because everybody, I don't think any of us disagree that we don't need a library. But the issue is when they went out and did the survey, did all that, people wanted all this stuff and nobody talked about how you're going to pay for it.
Well,
And that's the problem. That's the problem. How do you pay for it? And do you give your soul away to get it? Because I mean, it doesn't make sense to give them something we have and then turn around and pay for something. That just seems, that's one of the dumbest moves you could make.
Well, Ms. Page, I don't see a way that we're gonna fund building a new library without selling the old. I really don't.
Okay, I don't have a problem with selling, but the previous plans that when I was on a committee, they wanted us to give them the building and then turn around and pay them to use it, which I thought that was absurd. Now, I'm not an economist, but I own my house and I'm gonna give you the house and then turn around and pay you for the house. That just seems crazy. So I don't know.
Well, Randy, I look forward to setting a date after we get the new superintendent on board and having a meeting and having a real in-depth discussion about how to move forward.
No, I agree. Let's, Ms. Smith, let's
And
put
we
that on
sure
our
need
to-do.
all the documents and historical record to prove ownership.
Yeah.
Yeah, Ms. Crevington and Ms. Levers, if she's watching, I don't know if she's on, just start thinking about what that conversation would look like for our board members. Ms. Page and I can get together and put our heads together as well. But we'll want to set something, I would guess sooner than later, to have these conversations. So thank you all. Any other questions on the library budget here?
No.
So that is the end of my piece of the meeting, sir, and remaining board members. Next steps are on you guys.
Thank you,
I
Mr.
did take the list down of stuff to get back to you all for our next meeting or stuff we can send out as soon as we can. And I got Dr. Wynn's questions from yesterday, so we'll work on those also.
Right. And Mr. Lopez, I'd like for us to, at the next meeting, start identifying more specific at-risk services, such as maybe expanding our JAG-K program to other high schools. I think, and Mr. Covey, is it just at Wyandotte? Where else? Or whoever's in charge of the JAG-K?
It's at Schlegel as well.
Yeah, I think that.
Okay.
I thought it was at all the high schools. I'm not sure. I'll check on that.
Okay. So, I mean, is those kind of programs that we know are successful? And again, my generic question was like, and we only have 15 minutes left, but while we may be able to spend at-risk at-risk dollars on 2 secretaries, like at Fairfax and Bridges, we need clarification as far as how that directly impacts the student success. I don't know, Mr. Covington, you have to tell us which budgets do we find expenditures for if we were to want to expand robotics or STEM, or we know we just signed a contract with Ortho Gillingham. And when we put it on the consent calendar, we did not say how many people would participate. It just was the cost of participation. So it's those kind of specifics are relevant to the budget making process that the board needs to be specific to ensure that it's budgeted for. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Covington. So board, again, our hope is to be able to, at our July 20th meeting, we don't have any meetings set between now and then. So we'd like to get to the meeting in July 20th with a budget that we would be ready to approve. So we've got a little bit of work to do between now and then. Ms. Page and I thought it would be, had a conversation, thought it'd be a good idea for us to set up another budget meeting to go over and for Mr. Covington and his team to present some updated information based on today's dialogue, discussion, feedback. So we will get some dates to you on that. We don't, well, yeah, we'll get some dates to you on that to see when you might be available.
Mr. Lopez, this is a question for you and Ms. Smith. Are we sticking with board docs or are we going to board books next year?
That's probably a conversation we need to have as a board. We're currently, we re-signed with board docs due to the timing of when that contract came up. So we're still with board docs. I think that contract will end in February of next year. So sometime this fall we might want to, and I know Ms. Smith had been looking into and has had conversations with others to see what the other program does or offers that board docs may not, and cost.
Well, no, the real question is, do they cost the same? So if we budget 19,000, we cover whichever we use.
Right, I think if I remember correctly, it's roughly the same, or it may be even a little less than what board docs is. Which, thank you, Dr. Nguyen. Actually, board members, you have the board budget that was sent out to all of you. Thank you, Ms. Smith, for sending that. So if you have questions or thoughts on that, we can discuss that now. I think a lot of those line items are pretty similar to what they were last year. We'll want to make sure that we include in there for training, for board development. I know when Dr. Stubblefield comes on, we'll want to do a board retreat as well. So we'll want to add make sure that we have resources to cover that and some of the other training costs that we'll continue to do.
Yeah. And maybe when we have a conversation with Mr. Goheen, Shawnee Mission has an in-house lawyer, and then they use Mr. Goheen, like for today, for court purposes only. Our legal fees keep going up and up and up. And while people are quick to sue, maybe there's another way to handle this. So that's also a discussion I think the board would like to have, needs to have. And finally, is there not any line item for the deputy clerk?
So Ms. Tishman, maybe you can help me out with this one.
Yeah, the deputy clerk just gets paid overtime for any hours that they work. And since we don't know when they're going to work, when they might be needed to work, it'll just be an expense that we would have for anybody that worked overtime because of work needs.
So we don't need to budget anything for that? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, yes, typically we don't do that. But I mean,
Maybe
Dennis, am I
now
wrong?
we don't do that, but we've had
Yeah.
a line item before.
Okay, well, oh, all right. Well, I
So
wasn't.
I mean,
aware.
I'm not saying, asking for one. We have had it before. So, okay.
Okay.
We don't need it again. I understand.
Other questions?
So,
from the board
Lopez,
members?
do you want later to send you suggestions or something?
Yeah, yeah. So we're gonna, Ms. Page and I, we're gonna send out some dates. I mean, unless
Okay.
we've got a little bit of time. If you all want to have your calendars out, we could try to find a date. I think we had looked at, Ms. Page, remind me, we were looking at the week of July 12th. That would give staff time to work on some of the information that we talked about today and prepping other information, questions that they've received. That maybe that Thursday, the 15th again.
Mr. Lopez, may I also ask, as you guys are talking about the board's budget, you and I had corresponded that if you guys are going to go ahead with the documents that are board documents that you guys would like to, sustain differently, that I would recommend that we do put that money in the board budget and charge it accordingly. So we could take that money out of like the other equipment line that Dennis typically uses and just shift that money over, just so the cost is associated truly with the board.
Oh, so that would come out of that one line item that Dennis had referenced. So we just should.
We would transfer the money into the buzz budget.
Okay.
Right.
So
I know Ms. Smith is looking. Okay.
I got a question. 'Cause I thought, and Mr. Covington, correct me if I'm wrong. I put down we only had one meeting in July and I thought it was the 27th. You said the 20th. So is that board meeting the 27th or is it the 20th?
The 20th.
I thought it was the 20th.
Yeah, I had it the 20th.
20th.
Okay, so that's the only meeting we have in July, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, I know what you're talking about, Ms. Page. I
Uh-huh.
had thought that we may need a special meeting. to
Yes.
approve the budget.
Oh, okay. Well,
We can get it done on the 20th, we'll be good.
And can I also interject that we will probably need a special meeting for some personnel requests, because this is obviously major hiring time for us. So we need to go ahead and I would like to suggest that the next special meeting, we could potentially approve some hires.
So if we did that on that week of the 12th, Ms. Tushman, is that sufficient timing? Like if we said Thursday, and I don't know what Thursday the 15th or Wednesday the 14th looks like for the rest of the board members.
I'm flexible.
Yeah, I mean, it would.
Sounds like you have to do a lot of hiring, that you'd almost have to meet once a week, or at least for a little bit, just to approve it. Because I know some people applied, they took another job because it took so long for the board to get back to them. So, that is.
You mean HR, not the board.
Well, I mean, yeah, they were saying HR, they didn't hear from them, so they took other jobs.
I mean, obviously, if we could do something sooner, which we may, I know in years past, I'm trying to remember what we did last year. I think we even had a quick, does everybody recall, just a quick meeting just to approve personnel?
Just for HR.
I think that would be a plan to do.
Yeah, I mean, I would suggest if we could do something the week of the 5th through the 8th for HR, just to approve some more positions, it would probably help. But that does not have to coincide with, I mean, we can call that special meeting, I think.
Wednesday morning is fine, even at 8:30.
Which Wednesday?
I'm available Wednesday.
The 7th?
I can't do 8:30. If you can do it After 9:30, I'm with you.
I'm fine with that as well. Because the HR meetings last time didn't take too long, but maybe 10, 15 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah, I've got people sending me notes saying we need to we need to approve before the 12th. So if we could add something on that Wednesday, the 7th, that would help us.
Is that good time for you, Ms. Tishman? I mean, you don't need it sooner. The 7th would work.
I think that realistically, that's probably gonna be fine.
Okay. And that's just for HR for personnel.
Yeah.
Oh, so a 10-minute meeting is all we need then for on the 7th? Is that what we're looking at?
Yeah.
At what time?
I'm gonna say 10 a.m.
10 is fine.
Yeah, 10 is fine. And then,
Does that work for Randy and Yolanda? Can you guys break off for a 10-minute meeting at 10 a.m.?
Yes, that would work.
Okay. Let's plan
Do
on
you
that.
have any more time than 10 minutes? I mean, once you take a break, if we could get some work done and carve out a couple more budget items, it'd be something we haven't done.
Well,
I think that since we're just dealing with the HR approval,
just to,
that would be.
I understand that. I just said, since we are logging on, if you said one department, fine, we can do another 4-hour if you want to. But, just trying to utilize people's time, Ms. Drew.
can we do the 14th for the longer meeting? Can we do Wednesday, the 14th for the longer meeting?
Yeah. What does the 14th look like for folks?
Or the 15th?
Fine.
Or the 15th?
the 14th. You daytime or evening?
Daytime. We turn into monsters when it gets dark.
It doesn't get dark till like 8 o'clock though.
I'm fine with the meeting similar time.
8:30.
8:30.
But does that work for Yolanda and Randy? Because they have daytime jobs.
Me too.
Yeah. I
Well-
just checked my work calendar and it does work for me. I think I heard Dr. Yeager already say it worked for her.
Or
Yeah, it works. I can make it work. Do you have a preference, Dr. Yeager or Ms. Clark, on the 14th or 15th?
8:30 to noon is good for me.
But on either day?
Wednesday is better than, Thursday, either one. Either one.
Randy,
The 15th is a no-go for me.
I can't do Thursday.
Yolanda said Wednesday's fine with her.
Mr. Covington, what were you saying?
Oh, I was just saying on the 15th, there's a district-wide PD that most of our staff will be unavailable. I think.
Okay. Well, Wednesday it is. Wednesday at 8 a.m. on the 14th.
That's special meeting on Wednesday, July 14th.
Correct.
And can I also suggest that we may have, if we don't mind, we probably have a personnel report for the 14th again as well.
Yeah.
That's fine. Yep.
We'd have 2 opportunities in July besides the board meeting.
Okay.
Yeah.
Ms. Smith, just make sure you'll note that in the agenda, so there will be a personnel agenda item as well
On the 14th.
on the 14th. Okay, other questions or comments, discussion needed?
So 10 minutes on the 7th at 10, and then at 8:30 on the 14th for money and HR.
On the 14th, I'm sorry, did we say 8:30 to 12? What was our time?
I would plan until 8:30 to 12:30, block if you can. I mean, for those that can join us for that time, so we can really knock out whatever we need to, because then the next week would be our board meeting, where we would hope to be able to approve a final budget.
Okay.
Works.
Okay. All right. Other questions, comments?
No.
Mr. Covington, do you have what you need from us?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Mr.
Well-
Covington, thank you for your time today. I know you were in the hot seat. It felt like 4 hours, but I appreciate you.
He thrives in the hot seat. He loves the hot seat. So. Now, thank you all for all your diligent work today. Staff, thank you for all the time you've put into making this presentation happen. I know a lot of people hours happen behind the scenes to get to where we're at today. And board members, great dialogue, questions, and discussion. Really appreciate all of you. And so we will see everyone on the 7th.
And before we leave, Brandon, I just want to say, thank the board for approving those positions. It really helps us to get things moving forward. So we really appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you, board, for that. That's helpful. Okay, well, we're an email away if you need us. So thank you, board. Enjoy the rest of your day and have a great week. And yeah, see you.
See you later.
Meeting's
Bye.
adjourned. Thank you.